Sorry.
No, I know,
Did I
sorry,
not
I should.
circle back?
All righty, is everybody ready? Everybody ready?
Say
Yep.
you.
All
Motion,
righty.
yeah, I think.
Good evening. It is 5 o'clock and I'd like to call the September 25th, 2025 work session of the Stanton City Council to order. I will entertain a motion to appoint John Blair as acting city clerk.
Madam Mayor, I move to appoint John Blair as the acting city clerk for the September 25th, 2025 Stanton City Council work session and regular meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Counselor Woods. Any discussion? Nope. Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. All righty, item 1.5. I will now entertain a motion to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas.
I move to approve the work session and regular meeting agendas as presented.
Thank you, Counselor Overholzer. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wood. Any discussion? Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. Up to item 2, we have an update of benefits provided by Shenandoah Valley Department of Social Services. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, Amber Bokelman is here this evening. She is the Assistant Director of Benefit Programs for the Shenandoah Valley Department of Social Services. And she's going to give us an update tonight on the status of SNAP and Medicaid programs, not problems, programs. So thank you, Amber,
Never
for being
any
here.
problems.
Thank you for having me, Council.
Good evening. Welcome.
Okay. I would like to share a few agenda items that I have prepared. First, I'd like to open with an overview, a little bit about benefit programs and social services in general, just to acclimate the council. I will move into HR 1 and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and how that is impacting us as a state and what that rollover would be locally, specifically to SNAP and Medicaid programs, share a little bit of local statistics for you, and then some implications as we move throughout the next several years of the bill's impact. First of all, social services or local Department of Social Services are state supervised and locally administered. So we're responsible for the administration of human services, child welfare, and eligibility for all benefit programs. There are 120 local Department of Social Services across the Commonwealth, and we are overseen and supported by 5 regional offices. Shenandoah Valley Social Services is supported by the Piedmont Regional Office, which is stationed in Roanoke. Shenandoah Valley Social Services is designated as a level 3 agency, and we're often referred to as a Big 20. And the reason for that is we are one of the 20 largest caseload carrying agencies across the Commonwealth. A contributing factor to that is because we are a multi-jurisdictional locality serving the city of Staunton, city of Waynesboro, and Augusta County. We have 2 office locations. So we are positioned in the Augusta County Government Center in Verona, and we're also nestled in Waynesboro City on Shenandoah Avenue off of Delphine. We have a 3-prong agency structure. 1 is benefit programs, and we're assisting low-income families and individuals to meet their basic needs for food, household care, medical care, shelter, and to assist recipients in achieving economic independence. The 2nd prong is our services department, which promotes and supports the development of healthy families and protects Virginia's children and adults from abuse and neglect through assessment, intervention, and case management services following federal and state mandated programs. Our 3rd is our administrative department, which ensures that service delivery is provided according to federal and state mandate. It issues payments, recruitment, and financial planning and accounting services. The prong that I'm representing, benefit programs this evening, offers a multitude of services to our community members. TANF is temporary assistance for needy families, and that is a monthly cash assistance payment that assists individuals who have minor children in their home to stay intact and to promote self-sufficiency through our Virginia Initiative for Education and Work. We have our SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which provides access to food assistance, medical assistance, which pays for health and medical care for low-income families, our Energy Assistance Program, which covers the cost of heating and cooling expenses, as well as some repairs and replacements, along with the PIP program, or Percentage of Income Payment, which is in partnership with Dominion Energy. We have a child care subsidy program that pays for or helps to provide financial support for families to find and afford quality childcare where they work or go to school. HR 1 and SR 1, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, is establishing federal government spending priorities over the next several years. The full impact for our benefit programs is not yet completely known at this time. State agencies and state stakeholders are working to understand and evaluate program policy changes and the associated costs. So the information I'm going to share with you this evening is some that's happening in current time, but is also yet to come. And it's even going out to the year 2028 as we speak today. As you know, we will have changes with our governor with elections coming later this year. A General Assembly has to meet and approve funding. So there are some things that may change from my presentation today out in the future. For our SNAP program, there are going to be changes as proposed now to who is eligible and who will remain eligible. It is expanding the community engagement requirement, which is work, service, or education, to our population of able-bodied adults without dependents. It establishes a national clearinghouse and shifts more costs to states, meaning a fixed administrative cost and a match allocation. Regarding the eligibility changes, it's limiting SNAP eligibility to those who reside in the United States, who are a citizen, are lawfully admitted to for permanent residence with no intention of abandoning their residence in a foreign country, Cuban, Haitian entrants, or allowed to live and work in the United States under the Compacts of Free Association. It removes eligibility for refugees and those granted asylum, as well as any others not explicitly from the list I just described. It also requires that all non-eligible, non-citizen financial resources in any SNAP household be included in eligibility and benefit determination, even for those who are not receiving benefits. Work requirement modifications, changes to able-bodied adults without dependents. So these are single adults or couple adults without a children in their home. This particular population of SNAP recipients is limited to the amount of months of benefits they can get. Currently, it's 3 months at a time with a 3-year period of ineligibility if they are not meeting one of the work requirements I'm going to describe. The current age range is from 18 to 54 to be considered an able-bodied adult without dependent. That is going to be expanded from 18 years to 64 years of age. There are changes in the exemption for those with dependents in their household to only apply to those who have children in their household under the age of 14. Previously, it was 18 years of age. It limits waivers to only be permissible for an ABOD population for jurisdictions that have above a 10% unemployment rate or waivers based on lack of jobs in their area. It also ends the exemptions for ABODs for people who are homeless, veterans, foster care youth aged out of foster care at age 18 through 24 years of age. My computer decided to freeze. Hang Participation in multiple states. So there's going to be an expansion of a database, a national accuracy clearinghouse, which will allow authority to prevent multiple issuances of other assistance benefit programs through an integrated eligibility system. This is to prevent duplicate issuance of benefits when a customer may move from one state to another, and provide more accurate real time to ensure that 1 month of benefits is only received regardless of where that individual has moved. There will be an increase in administrative costs. Currently, administrative costs or money to run the program is split equally 50-50 between the state and federal governments. Beginning October 1st, 2026, so this will be federal fiscal year 27, states will be responsible for 75% of the share, while the federal government will be responsible for 25%. As an idea of what that administrative cost was in 2024, it was $360 million for the state of Virginia for administrative costs. There will be new state match requirements for benefit costs as well. Currently, benefit allotments, money that is issued to the households when they're determined eligible, are 100% federally funded. Beginning October 1st, 2027, so federal fiscal year 2028, states will be required to match between 0% and up to 15% of these costs based on their payment error rate from fiscal year 2026. We are getting ready to enter that on October 1st of this year. In 2024, Virginia dispersed $1.8 billion in SNAP benefit allotments, as an idea of how much we issue across the Commonwealth. Virginia's error rate for 2024 was 11.5%. And assuming there are no changes, this would result in an increased cost of $127 million to Virginia. The total potential cost to Virginia based on 2024's administrative cost and the payment error rate would be $360 million more than the 2024 baseline if both of those things were to occur. The SNAP payment error rate, to let you know how that is calculated, it's a federal measurement on quality control case reviews. So it's a case sampling of SNAP cases that were determined eligible to make sure that state agencies or local departments issued the correct amount of benefits. It's either an error would either be attributed to an overissuance of benefits or an underissuance of benefits. Improper payments can occur when an ineligible household receives benefits or when an eligible household receives an incorrect amount. And those can either be department staff caused or customer recipient caused. Examples of errors can be a data processing or a data entry error, missing a household change or a calculation. A household error could be an inaccurate household composition, so the people that make up that SNAP household, or inaccurate income or expense information. It doesn't measure things like fraud or illegal sale of benefits or retailer application fraud. It's strictly the money payment issuance for those eligible. Governor Youngkin issued Executive Director 13 in August that directed the Secretary of Health and Human Resources in conjunction with the Secretary of Finance and the Commissioner of Social Services to take steps to meaningfully reduce errors in benefit processing at local departments of social services to drive the error rate below 6%. There has been a massive endeavor by the Virginia Department of Social Services to infuse improvements so that we will drop below in this current fiscal year that 6% threshold and have a 0% match payment required. The governor directed to design and execute an incentive and disincentive program to encourage local agencies to adopt best practices to reduce errors, to require local benefit staff to complete a core set of trainings. Our teams in 5 weeks completed 12 trainings that were over 10 hours assigned and have trainings that will be completed through the end of this calendar year as well. to require benefit staff to verify applicant expenses and household composition instead of accepting self-attestation. That goes into effect October 1st. Our staff just received training this week, and we will be rolling that out for eligibility determination October 1st. Currently, our customers can provide self-attestation for expenses, and what they will have to provide now are verifications. So it might be an example, a lease or a landlord statement, a copy of a utility bill to provide the verification for the expenses that they have for their household. To investigate public-private partnerships to free up capacity for local Department of Social Services so that we can direct toward reducing the error rate. Institute system reform and increase quality control measures, utilizing contractors and exploring the feasibility of contracting with vendors to utilize cutting-edge technology and AI to improve the accuracy of our automation processes. The Virginia Department of Social Services initiatives to reduce the SNAP payment error rate are focused on oversight and local support. One is focusing on the high caseload departments, that's our department, by conducting targeted case reviews and providing technical assistance. Our departments are currently having cases pulled in red because we're the most likely to have quality control pulled since we have the largest volume of cases. We're reading those pre-authorization as well. So we're having case reading teams as well as a mandate that all of our local supervisors are reading cases pre-authorization to avoid payment errors. Improved communication engagement, so managing strategies and increasing listening sessions for local departments from state level or from eligibility level staff all the way to director level. Policy clarity and training enhancements, so aligning with quality control review measures where Virginia would have deviated previously, and data-driven quality control and technology upgrades to implement dashboards and automation tools. For medical assistance, there are changes to eligibility as well, very similar to how individuals might remain eligible that we talked about for SNAP, and it's also impacting our Medicaid expansion population. Changes from HR 1 are designed to reduce erroneous payments, shorten retroactive coverage as well. The implementation of these Medicaid provisions will be a collaboration of input between the Governor's Office, General Assembly, and our federal partners. Federal implementation and guidance will be forthcoming. We have not received implementation technical guidance to date, and current eligibility rules for Medicaid are remaining intact. So some of the things for SNAP we're implementing 10-1. Currently for Medicaid, we are remaining status quo for our eligibility determination. What may change beginning October 2026 would be the narrowing of the definition of a qualified alien under current law. Payments for services for emergency services for medical conditions. They're currently at a 50% federal match and would go to a 50% match, which is currently a 90% rate. Our Medicaid expansion population, which very much mirrors the SNAP able-bodied adults without dependents, will require a redetermination for those enrolled individuals to occur every 6 months. Right now, we review or redetermine those cases every 12 months. So it will be increasing 100%. That annual basis is projected to begin January 1st of 2027, and it'll mirror with open enrollment. It will limit retroactive coverage to 1 month for an expansion population and 2 months for all others. So when we have an individual apply for benefits, there's a look back period that they have the option to request. And so it will be shortening that time frame for those individuals. It also is going to implement a cost share greater than $0 for members who have an income at or above 100% federal poverty level with a cap of $35 per service. So an exception to this, though, would be for primary care provision, substance use disorder, mental health services, those provided through a qualified health center or rural or behavioral health clinics. The Medicaid expansion population would also see the institution of individuals participating in a qualifying activity of at least 80 hours per month. That would begin December 31st, 2026, very similar to what our SNAP population of able-bodied adults would experience. This would include working for 80 hours a month, a community service activity, education, or any combination thereof. There will be verifications of compliance at application, and then every 6 months that will follow the redetermination cycle. There are exceptions. For example, individuals who are pregnant or postpartum, foster or former foster care youth, tribe members, veterans with disabilities, medically frail, or those who already meet our STAT or TANF work requirements. It also would be inclusive of an individual who is the primary caregiver for a child under 13. Medicaid also would, the HR 1 bill looks at reducing erroneous payments with Medicaid. So it would institute a recoupment for erroneous payments based on the payment error rate measures. And it would also seek to reduce duplicate enrollment and the reduction of payment for services of deceased individuals. So much like health is health insurance. So you're paying for an individual who is receiving benefits. So we want to make sure that we are shoring up those that are needing to receive the service and those that are not, or who are deceased, that we are removing those from rolls and not paying ongoing monthly capitation fees. Shenandoah Valley Social Services roadmap for SNAP and Medicaid looks like this. Over the last fiscal year, we processed 430 SNAP applications per month. That's either a determination of approved or denied. We carry an average of 6,990 cases per month. That's households. And so that looks to be 12,855 community members. For Staunton City, we carry 1,806 cases, and that equivocates to 3,202 persons. Roughly, there are about 1,288 individuals who would meet that category of our current able-bodied adults without dependents. For Medicaid, we receive about 471 applications per month to process, whether those are approved or denied. We carry 18,338 cases monthly, which represents 29,350 total enrollees across our Saul area. For Staunton City, that is 6,676 enrollees and approximately 2,300 Medicaid expansion enrollees. Some implications to think about as we move forward through HR 1 and its impact. We are still waiting federal guidance for technical assistance. I was literally in a meeting from 1 to 2 o'clock today from our state level officials that says we've asked for technical assistance and guidance from CMS and FNS, and we are still waiting on responses. So just to know that this is a moving target for us, and we are ever present as a locality, making sure we're at the table to receive the information and provide real-time results and responses for our community members. There is no additional funding that has been provided to the state or our local departments for this increased workload, $0. And so it does resemble quite a large lift for our localities. The actionable changes that we have implemented are a result of the executive directive and what we know we can implement at this juncture, and awaiting the remainder of the clarity from the federal government. Of course, the state has to have time to respond to federal changes, even though they may go into effect. There are policies that have to be written. It has to be approved by the General Assembly, and then our system updates have to happen. What I do want to assure the council is that Shenandoah Valley Social Services is used as a lead agency to provide a resource and service to our other sister agencies. In fact, I had a team of 4 benefit supervisors that went to a state SNAP convening and provided panel discussions on what we do at our local department, how we keep our error rate down, and how to support staff and community members. So I want to to let you know that we are doing our part and we've been very fortunate to do well. And we have a really great team of benefit specialists and supervisors and our director who are on the forefront of making sure that we are appropriately issuing benefits to our customers who need them in the timeframes they need them and in the amounts that they are eligible for. That concludes what I have for you today.
Take a deep breath. That was a lot. Goodness, thank you so much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
I mean,
Counselors, any comments or questions?
I mean, well, certainly there's, I mean, well, certainly there's some parts of that, I mean, reducing payment error rates and things like that. But I mean, so much of it seems, I mean, lowering the age to 14 for being able to cover children in a household. Where are they supposed to get coverage?
So it's not coverage, it's the exemption for somebody who would not have to participate in the work requirement. So when an individual has a child in the household at age 14 or over, they're not exempt from the work requirement of 80 hours a month. So it's making that change. Right now, they're looking at a dependent being below 18, they're reducing that to 14. So it doesn't change a benefit allotment. It's who's required to participate to receive the benefit through the work requirement component.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, do you have any idea what I mean, if this goes through as it seems, what do you feel the impact on your ability to provide services?
So our ability to provide service will remain intact. It is how our community members will have access to opportunities to volunteer, find employment, or go to work or school, excuse me, so that they can meet that 80-hour a month mandate.
I mean, the entire bill, on it too. I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
there's a tremendous lack of funding.
There is a lack of funding, and with social services, that happens at times. We're very resilient
Yeah.
to be able to work through a lot of things, but we will do what we can do with
Well-
the resources we have.
Have you made estimates about how many people are going to lose SNAP benefits or
Yeah.
Medicaid?
I have not, because
Do the
again,
national estimates look reasonable to you? What
I don't know what that'll look like for our locality because we're pretty good we're rich with some resources here that other localities are not. We have amazing partners and stakeholders that I'm in meetings with and say, how can we help? How can we get the word out on these sort of changes that are coming? So I think we're pretty rich with that kind of thing and support.
And
Blake,
Go
in
ahead.
that sense,
Yeah.
we are very fortunate. Virginia is a very well-managed state and we do have a surplus. That's works to our advantage. I know that the cuts are huge and I know someone in your situation in another state whose cuts are much more drastic.
Mhm.
And the unknown is more worrisome than anything else. And I know that's a huge challenge when you're trying to plan a budget.
Yes.
When you don't know. Something that you said just struck a chord with me. When you're discussing losses in a certain program and there was the suggestion that an AI company would take over managing those losses. I just wonder if that technology and the 10% loss rate, which is more, paying the AI company a large amount of money, which AI also makes mistakes. I'm quite aware of it. I work at James Madison University and it's seen every day. So was there any mention whether the state is going to pick that AI company? Or is the federal government going to pick that AI company?
I think the state is involved in researching AI companies, those that might already be embedded with other states who are using that effectively for portions of their eligibility determination process. And so I believe that that is a state-driven endeavor at this juncture.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Ms. Vogelman, thank you so much again for this presentation. It was a lot to absorb. The two things that really stuck with me, the information that you provided about Staunton residents,
Mhm.
and one of them was the number of Staunton enrollees in the Medicaid program. And you stated that, I may have gotten it wrong, but in excess of 6,000 Stantonians use Medicaid as their insurance. And 2,000 of those are expansion or in addition to those 6,000?
2,000
Of
of
those.
those.
And
Yeah.
so from what I understand, and I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, those who are in the expansion program will be losing their coverage. Is that correct?
Their
or-
coverage will be redetermined more regularly. So every 6 months is the proposal to redetermine their eligibility more frequently.
Yeah.
And there will be the component of a community activity or community involvement activity. So it will be the 80 hours a month of some sort of education, volunteer, or work. So not necessarily that they will lose their eligibility, but it will be redetermined more frequently. And it'll have the work requirement along with it. What's changing would be the retroactive period. So when somebody would be newly applying for benefits and they would fall into the aid category of Medicaid expansion, the look back period would be 1 month instead of 3 months. So it would be that prior to application date.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just wondering, this is going to take a tremendous amount of education on the part of your office, I think, for the folks who are currently utilizing, and I'm sorry, we're running out of time. Using, we're way past time, I apologize. How people will become aware of this, of these changes, so they know that are they going to be receiving letters from your office?
So at this time, the state has not enacted any sort of mass correspondence that will be going out to our constituents. That's just blanketly discussing what it is that the changes are. We are going to, I heard today they are going to be receiving some correspondence to our SNAP population that will be losing their able-bodied exemptions. But that will be on our local level to educate our community members.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I allowed this to go over, but this is very important information. And thank you very much for your time this evening.
You're very welcome. I
And
appreciate the council.
Thank you for your positivity and your can-do attitude.
Yes.
Good luck with all of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. This moves us on to item 3, introduction and discussion of commercial property assessed clean energy program. Ms. Beauregard.
Yes, Amanda DeMayo, Economic Development Director, will introduce this item tonight.
I'm sorry.
Good
Amanda.
evening.
It
I'll
took
talk
so
fast.
much.
Thank you. We are introducing CPACE. It's a special loan program for commercial property owners to make energy saving improvements to their buildings. CPACE is operating in 21 other jurisdictions in the state currently. Virginia Energy chose Virginia PACE Authority as the administrator for the statewide CPACE program in 2022. And joining us tonight for the presentation is Abby Johnson from the Virginia PACE Authority, and she's going to give you an overview and explain how it can help our commercial building owners, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Amanda, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today at City Council.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I'll try to be brief because the prior topic was very important. I understand the need for that. So, So as Amanda said, we are the administrator for the program in Virginia. We are a nonprofit 501c3 created specifically to administer this program. So we are responsible for pretty much everything that revolves around CPACE for the state. We onboard projects, we approve projects, we market the program, we onboard localities. We also vet and approve capital providers and contractors. So we take the burden of this program off of the local governments. That's the point. And our mission is actually to provide CPACE throughout the Commonwealth and also to protect our clients, which are the local governments and the state. We have a lot of experience. I've been doing this for almost 13 years around the country, and in Virginia about 10. We ran some local programs before and realized it was better to have a state program. So that's why it's relatively new for that. We've closed 4 deals, and we actually have a pretty healthy pipeline. And I say that now with more certainty that some of these will actually close because there's been a lot of uncertainty in the market the last few years, and just got word one is in closing process in Richmond. So we're excited. We see this is a really great program for the city. So what is it? Some of you probably have heard of it, but I'll just run through this fairly quickly. It is an innovative form of private financing for a wide variety of measures, including energy, as Amanda said. We do energy efficiency, renewables. We've added resiliency a few years back. We think that's important also because we see that a lot of insurance companies, also larger lenders are requiring this, so it's kind of trickling down to everyone. And so this is absolutely something we want to help Staunton with. We also think for your historic building stock, the fact that we have environmental remediation as an option could help with things like asbestos remediation, mold, lead pipes, et cetera. It's established by state code, and after that, that state code basically says local governments have the option of participating, so it's not obligatory. But so far, as Amanda said, 21 are participating, representing about 51% almost of the population, and we have another 3 to 4 in the queue, getting ready to go to council or do things like this. Basically, the reason why you are involved as a local government is that we're basically asking you to allow for the placement of a voluntary, as in development or owner asking, for the placement of a special assessment lien on the property. And the reason why we use a special assessment mechanism is that it's superior to a first mortgage, and therefore it's like called a super lien. And what that means is that it can offer at that point really good financing, good terms, such as long fixed rates, probably competitive with bank financing right now, flexible, and basically funding 100% of the project typically, as long as it does not exceed, per our guidelines, 100%, which it never does because of the way that the negotiation works. But that is why you're needed. We also think it's great for you as an economic development tool, and I'll touch on that later, and also for your sustainability programs. So it basically funds everything but single-family residential. That's per code, and we also think that's the best for now. Too long to go into now, but could another time explain that. Here's some examples of some of the eligible improvements. There's many more that are eligible. We have an extensive list in our guidelines, which I'm happy to share. It's on our website as well under resources. But basically, we're really trying to make it a great combination of economic development and kind of energy efficiency tools. So kind of marrying those two elements in this program. I would say that although it's for both types of buildings, existing and new construction gut rehab, it's being used a lot for new construction gut rehab, because what we're finding is banks, particularly lately, in the last year and a half or so, are really much more stringent in their requirements. They're lending less at lower levels. What happens, a lot of projects that were perhaps able to do this with just bank financing and equity are now finding a capital gap. And that gap could be filled by other kinds of expensive financing like mezz debt or pref equity, or they can use PACE. And they're finding that PACE is not only cheaper, it provides all the control stays with the developer, and they're also it's also more flexible. So you can defer payments, for example, until the project is stabilized. So imagine you're building a hotel and it takes a year and a half to build, and then you have to get occupancy up. The CPACE portion would not have to be repaid until after it's stabilized. I mean, that's negotiated amongst the PACE lender, which is a private lender, and the property owner. But we're allowing 3 years of that, 3 years of deferring payments. And if it's a huge project for some reason and it requires longer than that, we can talk about it. But we think that that's plenty of time to stabilize. What that means is that portion doesn't have to pay the debt service or interest during construction. That helps the developer. That helps the project pencil. And also it allows for the ability to be non-recourse for that component because it's attached to the property and not to the borrower. So this has also been seen as very attractive for property owners. And I know I'm going really quickly on a fairly complicated program, but I just cognizant of time. It also helps with retrofits. I think for Staunton, that would absolutely be a great use. This is an example of a hotel we closed 2 years ago in December. I actually stayed at it last week because I wanted to see what it was really like to actually stay in this hotel in Petersburg. Very nicely appointed, good energy efficiency measures primarily. And of course, again, this actually was interesting because it had, I think, IRF funding. It had historic tax credits. It had another, I think it had some list financing was like part of the tax credits, but there was some other grant, I think, from the authority and PACE. So it shows that you can use all sorts of tax credits and incentives with PACE, doesn't implicate anything. It doesn't count as any of these boxes you see and the lawyers do on the right-hand side for the historic tax credits or the new market tax credits. We're just considered on the kind of the left side, the debt side. So it's funds hard and soft costs, which I think is really important. If you want to be a LEED certified building or well, or whatever you would like, you want to fund your energy projects, energy efficient, energy analysis, you can do that through PACE. Also funds or allows for the capitalized interest. So for example, if I don't want to pay right away and I want to defer my interest, that interest gets put on top of the loan amount. So now say I have a $10 million PACE loan, you now have an $11 million PACE loan, just to say. I mean, I don't know, I haven't done the numbers, but you just pay more and you amortize that over the period of the term. The term is based on the useful life of the improvement. So if you take like HVAC and lighting and solar and stormwater and you look at their useful lives, you take the weighted average of how much each one costs and you get the length of the term. Typically, we can get to 25 to 30 years, which is great for in terms of the cash flow of the project. From your perspective, it provides both economic development, and as I mentioned before, energy efficiency, sustainability goals, help support these goals, helps provide you a free mechanism to offer to your developers and building owners. It's completely private. You're not involved in funding, guaranteeing, and all that. It's just another tool in your toolbox. And that's to go into more detail on that. Really, this is the time you're spending on it. This and your attorney who wants to look at this. Also, staff will say we have to delegate someone who will be involved when we close a project. But once you pass the ordinance and you sign the agreement with the state, with Virginia Energy, you're done until we have a project. And then that really is basically, we do all the work. We find the project, we vet the project, we approve the project. We send a letter to you saying we've approved it, we reviewed the legal documents, we reviewed the technical documents, it meets the requirements of the program that our program guidelines. And so what we've seen in the 4 deals we've closed is simply a pretty simple review by the attorney to make sure, again, that nothing has been changed per the standard docs that we will provide you. So we have the model ordinance, the model program agreement to sign it each deal closes. So all that's been taken away from your work. We also do not have you bill and collect for these PACE loan payments. And also we are allowing for you to delegate the authority of the enforcement to the capital provider if you don't want to do that. You can do it if you want, but you don't have to. And that's something maybe new since the last time I spoke to some staff. This is where we are currently. We think Lynchburg will be soon. Roanoke is going to have it probably in November. And we're working with Norfolk and a few other localities. So it's usually just a matter of what we're seeing. We haven't really got much pushback against passing it. It's just staff time and other priorities. And I mean, like, for example, SNAP, I know that's actually it was really hard to hear. I'm really sorry about that. So I understand the priorities, but I'm glad that I'm happy that you're willing to spend a few minutes talking about it today. So the last slide, and then I'll open up to questions, is that what we're doing in number 1, we're doing now. Number 2 is really reviewing the documents, making sure you're comfortable, and that is primarily by your attorney. I'm presenting now, but potentially we would do this in front of a formal meeting or maybe not, depending on your comfort level. You have to formally have a public hearing. Some localities can do the public hearing and passing the ordinance the same time. Some cannot. I don't know Stanton's rules. And once you adopt it, then you will sign the agreement with Virginia Energy, which is an agreement you've already agreed to by passing the ordinance. So the ordinance has 2 exhibits. It has the locality agreement, which is agreement that you will sign with the state, and the program agreement draft, which is the agreement that gets signed when you close a project. But that's a draft. No one's really changed it right now, but I'm just saying those are the 2 documents you approve. So basically, once you've passed the ordinance, you just need to do the kind of staff process of signing the locality agreement, and then you're in. And then we take over. So thank you very much. And I tried to run through that and maybe too much, but
No,
yeah.
well done.
Fantastic. No, thank you so
Deep
much,
breath.
Ms. Johnson. Yeah. I think we heard about this before, hadn't we, Mr.
Yes.
Mayo?
Yeah. last one.
Yeah, excellent. No, I appreciate this. Does anyone have a quick question before? We will, as you said, we'll hear more about this from Mr. Blair.
And I was smiling.
We'll discuss this further.
When was the program established at statewide level?
The statewide was about 3 years ago.
And
So-
approximately how many actual projects have been?
We've closed 4, which
Four.
is, yeah, a lot of the projects we have in the pipeline started about the end of 22, 23, and they've just been stalled due to nothing to do with pace.
Right.
But yeah, we do expect 1 to 2 this fall and probably another 1 to 2 in the spring. So things are starting to pick up finally, you know, as a nonprofit, I'm very excited about that.
Right.
And I can see by the nodding heads, a lot of you have heard about it. So I'm happy for that. But
Yeah.
you can always contact me offline anytime.
Thank you.
So I think we're getting general direction that yes, you do
Yeah.
want to
Yeah, it's a
pursue.
great-
Everyone
We'll
likes them
start
to-
It's a great
preparing the
program.
information
Like staff to move
necessary.
forward with,
Yeah, I'd love to learn.
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
we will
Work
do
for us.
that.
Great. Well, that's awesome. Thanks for the wonderful news. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you for your time.
Okay, thank
for
you very
being
much.
here. Moving on. Oh, it's a marathon tonight. Moving on to item 4, we have an update on tunnel and street repairs at the wharf and longer-term flood mitigation considerations. Ms. Beauregard,
So I know this is what everybody's been waiting to hear about.
back on time now.
Before I begin though, Mr. Knight has informed me that if you're watching from home, you're not seeing the PowerPoints. We're not sure why that's happening. Everything is online, so if you go to our website and type presentations in the search bar, it comes up immediately as the first link. So you may follow along using that. And this is actually the first presentation that's on that for September 25th. So we're not sure why it's happening, but there is a way around it. You can follow at home on your own by going to the presentations webpage of the city council agendas. So just
Yeah.
wanted to put that out there because there was a presentation for the last one, but the people at home didn't see it. So apologies for that. Yeah, so where to begin? Okay, we have, Lyle's gonna walk up and he's gonna, we have several staff preparing this information, presenting this information this evening. And really, it's just gonna kind of walk you through what was already in the briefing memo, allow any questions that you would like to bring up to come out. So Lyle's gonna talk more about the repairs and that side of it. Josh is going to talk a little bit about the communication piece and kind of the other things that we're taking into consideration. And then Willow is going to talk about daylighting at the end. So we'll leave that for the end. So we'll get to the tunnel areas first, and then we'll talk about the last piece at the end. So, okay, take it away, Lyle.
Thank you, Leslie. So as Leslie mentioned, I just wanted to give an update on where we are in the process for the tunnel repairs. And I'm sure you probably looked at the packet that referenced the how we got here in the first place with the flooding and the initial or the recent efforts starting last year by Wiley Wilson to do a tunnel survey and evaluation. And then, of course, last March, it was discovered, wow, there's some problem areas. And so that's where we dove into the design of repairs to 3 specific areas. So where are we right now in the timeframe of the design? Currently reviewing the final draft of the contract documents, includes 43 plan sheet set of construction plans, as well as the project manual and technical specifications and contract front end. And the hope is to be able to advertise for bids for construction here in a couple of weeks. And since March, what has been going on? Well, first they had to do some supplemental survey to pinpoint and identify exactly where the problematic areas are. And again, we're looking at under the streets, under Byers Street, where the tunnel crosses, Johnson Street and South New Street. Also, they did some geotechnical investigation. They did multiple core samples near these areas to help the structural engineers determine how much they need to beef up the foundations for these repair areas, particularly for the replacement sections on Johnson and Byers Streets. And also there was some permitting for, we received a notification from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers earlier this month that we were notified that we're covered under a nationwide permit for this work involving the streams. And then, of course, the design itself. So plan is to advertise in a couple weeks. And if all goes well, after the bids are opened in November, we hope to be under contract by the end of the year to allow work to begin as early as in January 2026. So our goals for these repairs are first and foremost public safety prior to and during construction, and then of course to have ultimately get our downtown streets fully functional while minimizing to the best of our ability the disruption to the wharf and the surrounding community. And for it to, of course, to be cost effective. And along with that is, we don't want to just put a Band-Aid on something. We want to dig once, particularly at Byers Street and Johnson Street, where these are major excavations. We don't want anybody to have to be redigging this anytime soon, like, decades and decades. So these are the locations that I'm sure you all are very familiar with. The two purple spots there at first Byers Street and then also Johnson Street indicate that's where the replacement of the tunnel is going to happen. The new street in blue to the east is a partial replacement of the tunnel ceiling, but it's especially right where it's adjacent. The problem area is adjacent to where it daylights. So most of the work can be done just from the edge without having to have a major excavation. And so we're not going to have to replace the tunnel walls there. And some review of how we got here in the first place, why we're doing this. This is under the Byers Street in the tunnel there in the ceiling. There was delamination of the concrete in the ceiling where it basically due to the corrosion of the steel rebar from 70 plus years ago, it was when it was installed, that caused that layer of concrete to fall off and allowed the rebar to corrode and have some integrity issues structurally. Similarly, on Johnson Street, we have some spalling of the concrete as well as corrosion of some of the steel supports and rebar. And that's the full width of the ceiling in that case across the tunnel wall to wall. And this is on New Street where the area, what they found was not quite as bad. And but still, that's why we blocked off that area of the sidewalk and about 5 feet into the parallel parking spaces on the left side as you go up New Street there, just to keep the public off of that. And so that section will be repaired, just the decking replaced for that. Now, our approach for repairs and replacement is it's going to be a top-down approach. Going to have to come down through the road surface with somewhat of an exception at New Street. Some can be done underneath, but again, part of that has to be replaced. But just because of the nature of it and safety as well as constructability, we're just going to need to excavate it from the top. So it's going to involve the removal and replacement of the tunnel walls and the roof with a reinforced concrete at Byers and Johnson Street. And then, as I mentioned, at New Street, just the ceiling partial removal and the repair there. One of the most complicating factors of the design process, and we'll also get into the construction process, is dealing with the existing utilities, particularly at Johnson Street. At Johnson Street, there are two 8-inch gas lines that go through the tunnel right along the ceiling. There's a 10-inch water main. There are 2 sewer lines that go longitudinal with the tunnel, a 10-inch and a 15-inch. So those are all entangled with this construction process. And so before we just start digging and putting in concrete, obviously we're going to have to be careful about what we're going to do with these utilities. And for the gas lines, that also means coordinating with Columbia Gas. And so we've done that. The first step of the Johnson Street work will involve the relocation of the one gas line and coordinating that with Columbia Gas. Basically, we'll have to make a trench that from the top of the asphalt is going to be about 15 feet down for both the gas and the water line replacement in order to get down below the tunnel. And so that'll be a big construction effort there. The good news is they will be out of the path of the water henceforth. And so that'll be good. That'll be one of the first things that's done. The second gas line, we don't have to relocate. Columbia Gas is doing some work off-site in order to reroute to be able to deliver the gas where it needs to go, so that they end up with only one line under the tunnel. So that's good news.
That's good.
Kind of similar with the water line and how that's done. And the sewer line there, And then I mentioned electric because there are some electrical conduits that go along the outer edge of the tunnel on South New Street. So we're coordinating with Dominion on that. And also there's a water line in the New Street Tunnel that is a bit precariously placed. And so it's old. It has a few repair clamps in it. It's extends down below the beams in the top. And so that's going to be replaced and effectively kind of nestled up in between the beams of that bridge deck, which will help protect the water line. It'll be brand new and also be out of the way of the flow path to help with the stormwater hydraulics. And speaking of stormwater, all this work will be happening in active streams. And so we'll have to mitigate that with using cofferdams and other design approaches that were approved through this stream permit process. Here's just a couple of insets from the plans, just to give you an idea for the Byers Street and Byers Street and Johnson Street. Just kind of an example at the top left there, that section view, there'll be, that does not show the utility lines that will be relocated underneath the water and gas. But basically it's to show the structure of the tunnel itself, where we'll have a poured concrete footer and foundation. And then off-site, we'll have a prefabricated reinforced concrete, kind of that U-shaped, that'll be brought in from off-site so that it can be placed on top and secured. And the necessary sewer lines also relocated and encased, protected in concrete within the tunnel. On the right, just an example of plan view. That's there at Johnson Street. The darker lines, kind of dark gray lines that go through there represent the existing tunnel walls. And if you look closely, you can see, particularly there where the bend is, we're actually taking the opportunity to widen the tunnel, which will really help with the hydraulics there. It's kind of unfortunately a bit of a bottleneck. And so well, as long as we're doing this, let's improve the flow through there as best we can.
Well, one question along the lines of that. What started this all was when we sent Wiley Wilson down there to look at the idea of dredging and removing debris. I mean, obviously debris will be removed, but is dredging this out to get a little bit more flow part of this scope?
It is, especially at this location, because the way the water comes down from the little waterfall, right? Just upstream of the parking garage in that section there. And then between that and making the turn, there's a lot of debris that's developed if you look at the plan view, kind of on the right side there, basically underneath the sidewalk, just at the far south end of where the relocation is going to be. And so part of the design is to include contract work of, hey, while we're here, let's get this out, because that's some of the worst area that we have of the debris. So it's a good opportunity to do that. There'll still be some more when we get back to the longer term repair plan and tunnel evaluation. But great question. We want to make the most of that opportunity there.
You're still part of it.
So how long is this going to take? Great question.
Glad you asked.
We're gonna start with Byers Street, and that is strategic. And again, if we can get started in January, we're allowing for 4 to 5 months to get that work complete. And then we want to do just one area at a time to help with impact to downtown and traffic and such. And after that's done, we move to Johnson Street. And one of the main reasons is we anticipate using Byers Street to help alleviate the traffic, because currently Byers Street's already closed at the point where the repairs will be. Johnson Street is not, but it will be when that large excavation takes place. Golly, that seems like a long time for Johnson Street, all the way to April, really? That's conservative. We're hoping that it can be done in 2026. The tricky part is if it's still going and the asphalt plant shut down, we wouldn't be fully complete with repaving until they open back up. And so this is conservative. I'd like to think it'll go sooner, but we want to be prepared for the worst case scenario. And once Johnson Street is done, the work would move to New Street to continue for a few months there in the spring of 2027, or possibly sooner if it works out. Of course, to the extent this will be weather dependent, especially for work in the wintertime. So as an example of some of the things we're looking at, how do we mitigate what goes on in construction? Of course, traffic is an issue. And so since Byers Street's going to be first, I wanted to show the effect and impact for Byers Street on traffic. As I mentioned before, it's already closed to through traffic, but the shaded area there, the parking lot that's currently open in the upper eastern portion of the wharf, that'll need to be closed just to allow for construction activity, lay down yard, staging area. The area below that is already off limits to vehicular traffic. And so effectively the entire east side of the wharf, or the majority of it, if not the entirety of it, will be the construction zone there. And then the access to Byers Street, the barrier will be moved north all the way up to Johnson Street. And but the lower section of Byers Street will still remain accessible, and that there's a residence there that at the end where the Byers Street turns, and so we'll certainly need to make that still accessible there. So I've been talking about more the kind of the engineering side of things, and certainly there's lots to consider in that, but there are also larger kind of zoomed out view community things to consider. And so Josh is going to discuss that.
Thank
Lyle,
you,
can
Mr.
I,
Hart. Oh, sorry.
can I ask a few engineering related questions? Sure. Just was there, and maybe the site's too unique or too many constraints to consider it, but did we look at like a precast concrete culvert as opposed to building footers and keeping the natural stream bed? Like actually putting in a box culvert
Well, mainly because of the sewer on Johnson Street,
just to have the ability to be flexible with utilities.
we couldn't do that. Yeah, we had to, and also the geometry there, particularly where it bends, where there's the turn in the stream. And similarly, there's also a sewer line at Byers Street. We're not going to relocate that because that one's already down underneath the stream, but just to be able to get things exactly how we want particularly with the utilities, they'll have to form the concrete. And so that'll be a challenge dealing with, again, the cofferdams and dealing with the stream. But that's, once that's done, then, we can go ahead and bring in the prefabricated, the upper section, the walls and ceiling that'll be brought in together.
And then I know you said the Johnson Street, the new tunnel will add a little capacity, but will it get us to any stormwater standards like 10-year?
It kind of depends to an extent what happens downstream. Really there, it's ensuring that we're not making things worse than they already are upstream as well as downstream, because we're currently not looking at doing anything to the tunnel underneath the garage. And so that's part of a constricting factor there. So it'll ensure that it can make that turn without reducing the existing constraints upstream and downstream that exist.
You satisfied?
I am.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hart. Thank you very much.
We're not going to let him go too far anyway.
Right,
so.
okay. Good evening, Mr. Knight.
Good evening, guys. First time up here, so this is a little exciting for me.
Yay.
But
Welcome.
Lyle really hit on a lot of those kind of big picture items that we're gonna have to think about through each phase, through each part of this. But these bullet points are just kind of highlighting the different parts of it that we're really gonna have to consider with each phase, and they will change some with each phase depending on where we're working. And the parking plan is one of the big ones. With each of those, depending on where we are, we'll see different lots closed down or parts of lots closed down, different street parking will change. And the big thing for us is going to be making sure we still maintain access for everybody to get to the parking and make sure they know how to get to the parking. So that's going to be a big one, and that's going to be something we'll continue to talk with our stakeholders in the wharf as we continue to move through and make sure that we're doing what we can to work with them and make sure that people are able to get where they need to go. With that in mind, the detours are going to be a really big part of that as well. Not as much of an issue with this first phase. We're not really shutting down any new streets. Byers Street has already been shut down. But we get to Johnson, that is certainly going to be the big one. And explaining how people are getting around, making sure that we have the correct way, roads that truck traffic can actually fit on, that can accommodate them, and making sure the parking that is available is still accessible and easy enough to find. Along with that, we'll make sure we're working with Bright, first responders, and the rescue squad, make sure they know how to get around all of our detours. And we'll continue to update Google Maps, Waze, other applications so that ideally it's taking people to the correct place. We did hear from some of our wharf stakeholders that even now, unrelated to the closures, people are still brought to the wrong side, whether it's Middlebrook or Byers. So we understand that there are some issues even with those mapping applications, but we'll do what we can, at least with the detours. Wayfinding and signage, that has been a big kind of ongoing and evolving kind of update throughout this process. And that's something we'll continue to work on, not only for the detours, but also to really help people who are visiting downtown, or even people who live here but just don't go that often, want to make it as easy as possible. Pedestrian access, you've probably seen some of the changes already. One nice picture there for you of the selfie station, but the rocking chairs, I think one of the nicest upgrades within the last week is all the lighting down there on kind of the Boulevard of Trees. Yeah, so we've heard pretty, we've heard gorgeous. People really like it. And the idea is really just that it is going to kind of help tunnel people down there from up on West Beverly. Realize that even with barriers, with cones, with orange, that there is still more down here that we're open for business. And I think right now that lighting is really helping to do that. One of the reasons for that is during the day, we kind of realize that a lot of people, you drive by, you can see that there are people parked in that lot. You know there must be a way to get in there, but at night, there are fewer cars. You might not be able to see as well. So really just wanted to make sure it was well lit, give people that kind of vision that, oh, there's something down there I should probably go check out. So that's a big idea with that. So the placemaking will continue. We'll do our best to make sure if we have to move things a little bit, we still keep our picnic tables, keep the rocking chairs, but just keep it an inviting space for people to gather and just another part of town that people will want to get to. Along those lines, and a lot of this really throughout the process has been the feedback and support with our businesses. In April, so we first had this begin in early March. In April, we met with a lot of our wharf stakeholders, that was businesses and residents, primarily because we wanted to hear from them. We wanted to know what their impacts were, and we wanted really to make sure they knew we had an open line of communication, that they could reach out to us with issues that they were having, and that we could do whatever we could to respond quickly and appropriately. So that working group does continue. We met in July, and we just met yesterday, actually met in September, and really just giving them a chance to discuss their current challenges, for us to provide updates to them, keep that open line of communication, and then really collect insight on their needs. And I think it has been successful. We heard a lot about QCMM yesterday with them, so it's been really nice to have that back and forth dialogue. And then lastly on that is kind of our communication plan. So there will be a need for a lot of updates. I would say near constant updates. So one of the things that we have built out, and you may have already seen it, is the webpage, project webpage. There are project web pages for a lot of our different projects, but this one will probably be the most dynamic, just with the kind of the activity as we move forward. We'll continue to update timelines, progress updates, construction photos, FAQs, primarily as we start to get more of them. Kind of listening closely tonight to see what needs to be added on there. And then along with that, just to make sure we can involve our media, keep them updated to help spread the word as well, we'll be doing news releases before each of the construction phases begins, highlighting the detours, highlighting the parking changes, and what people can expect as we move through that phase. If there are big changes, of course, we'll do more of those sort of releases to make sure we can get the coverage back down. But anecdotally, throughout this process since the springtime, they've been very interested in what's going on. I think we'll be able to help get the word out along with our website. That is where I will continue, and I hope everyone can kind of continue to push people to as the hub of kind of the centralized information as things evolve. So.
I have a quick question, Josh, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The lights do look really beautiful, just driving by the other night. I just wonder, as a business owner and talking to business owners, how far are we from like actual signage? I mean, it's been 5 months, even if it's just like, pardon our mess, or, you know, something
Right.
like that, like, especially, I know this weekend's an anomaly, but like heading into the holidays. Because still at this point, if you drive by and you're not familiar with it, you don't know what's going on down there. And it's just a really precarious time for small business right now. So.
I know we've had quite a few discussions on it, and I think we need to continue. One of the things that I think is going to open that opportunity is the changes right there when you come down Central, as we get the planters in place. And I think that will kind of give us an opportunity to maybe add some wayfinding there. That was one of the things we continued to hear yesterday, was that some things could still be better, just as far as making sure people know businesses are open, and even to the point of who's down there. So that is something we continue to discuss with them and internally.
Is there a timeline for
Timeframe?
the planters to be up with signage?
October.
Yeah, the time, it's really based on Matt Sensible and his fall planting. So he just didn't want to get summer plants in there just to rip them out. So it will happen in October when he is kind of changing out all the beds.
I see.
As far as the road closures, you know, and the phased road closures, and we talked a little bit about this in other meetings, in that, and I don't know if I should bug you directly, but I'll just look at everyone. Once Buyer Street is, once phase one is done, once they do Buyer Street and that, the idea is that that is a detour to go across there. Now, something that's been talked about is how it is a two-way street, but it feels wrong. If you're coming from Johnson Street that way, and it's definitely not a very wide one, and if we're talking about trucks, delivery trucks going through there as well, will we talk about maybe turning that into one way, but then we run into the issue of the new entrance to that lot. You would only be able to access.
You would
that
only
from
be able to
one
access
direction.
it from, Lyle, I'm gonna let Lyle actually speak to this. You're right. We said yesterday that it was very likely to be one way, but I'm gonna let Lyle. talk
And so
about
that would be one way coming from
Lewis.
the stub of
Lewis.
Johnson through Buyers, reconnecting with Johnson.
Right, the intent is, and part of what we're reviewing now is the transportation management plan for future phases, but it hasn't been nailed down yet. But we're looking at Buyer Street being one way from Lewis going up to Johnson that way, as part of effectively part of the detour for when the Johnson Street is closed. So, because you got to take various one-way streets into account there, as well as, you know, what about Beverly on the weekends, and how to get folks through. Also, what about trucks? What's the best way to do that? So we might need to be creative about some signage about how we deal with trucks, and going back to what Josh was talking about, of getting the word out, getting maps and Waze and other apps updated to help us get folks where they want to go.
So it would be one way on Buyers, but then the other way would be to go across the upper wharf.
On Middlebrook?
Yeah, at Middlebrook up, yeah.
Yeah, that's also,
Middlebrook.
and I mean, we didn't really talk much about that tonight because that's still kind of being finalized
Okay.
and tweaked. Yeah. But that's generally the idea, but we'll definitely have more details as we get closer to actual start of construction. So, yeah,
And that closure for Johnson Street wouldn't be until
next
spring.
year. Yeah, next summer.
Right,
Yeah.
yes, after we can reopen Buyers.
All righty. Well, thank you, Mr. Hart, again. I think we have a new speaker.
Yeah, so we're going to move away from kind of the
Thank you,
tunnel
Mr.
repairs themselves and go more into the other part of this conversation, which is
Can I
around.
stop just a second
Yes,
and just
sir.
say, what's the next step on the first piece here, which is the triage, the repair of the 3 affected areas?
The next step is it'll go out to bid next month. Yeah.
Will that be a vote at a meeting?
No, we
or-
don't vote on that. No, no, sir. No. Okay. So Willow here is going to talk about some aspects of possible daylighting. You all have expressed interest in looking into this. And she's going to share some information and take some questions, and hopefully we can maybe start getting some direction from you all as far as how you'd like to proceed. So.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure as you guys are aware, there was a $30,000 feasibility study included in the 26 CIP. And that one was going to be a very high level conceptual look at daylighting the streams that run underneath the wharf parking lot. We've just determined that that one is not going to meet our needs. It's not going to provide us with enough information. That one was only ever intended to give us enough information to start a more in-depth, thorough look at daylighting. And we feel like we've kind of gotten some of that in other aspects. So we are now looking towards an actual next step, not just thinking about daylighting, but seeing what would need to be done. Especially with the information we have from the tunnel study, we know that there are portions of the tunnels that are damaged and need to be addressed sooner rather than later. So with all of that in mind, our consultant Wiley Wilson has given us an updated scope that will provide a more thorough exploration of our paths forward. This updated scope will cost $166,000, which is an increase from the last one. So I'll take you guys through what this one is going to provide. One quick note before I get into that, some of these maps are a little confusing, so I want to do my best to explain them. The consultant split these streams up to look at them individually. So section 1 there in the light purple, that includes the tunnels that carry Peyton Creek, but also the confluence where it meets Lewis Creek. That's because that represents the area that has the most damage that needs to be addressed regardless of what option we go forward. And then the second section there in light blue, that is just Lewis Creek above the confluence. So the first part of the scope is it's going to give us preliminary grading and site plans. These will be a very first look at what these channels, these tunnels could look like in different configurations. So I'm going to walk through what those configurations are, and I'm happy to take any questions you have on those. The first one would be looking at daylighting this section 1, Peyton Creek and the confluence, in a concrete channel. That would look similar to what's in front of Mill Street Grill. The second site plan we would look at would be daylighting that same section 1 in a more natural channel. It's probably more what you're thinking about when you hear daylighting. The third site plan we would get would be looking at both sections in a daylighted concrete channel. And the fourth one would be looking at both in a natural channel. So those will kind of give us a general idea of what they can look like on a site plan. And then our last there will be, they will make us one more site plan that is our preferred option. And that just means a combination that wasn't one of those previous 4. So if we wanted to look at one in a concrete channel and one in a natural channel, or any combination we preferred, that would be the last one they would design for us.
Excuse me for 1 second. So when we talk about natural and daylight, are we talking about when we talk about the concrete, we talking about what is actual concrete? And other one is natural when it's just open?
Yes. Yeah. So the concrete one would look more like Mill Street, where the stream is open there, but it's quite far down below where you're walking. A natural one would try to make the stream a little more accessible, have it graded out more. And it would look more like a natural stream with stream banks. Yes.
But there are a lot of different variations within that choice that would be possible. Natural could be sort of a kind of a straight down gully, or it could be more incorporate banks and seating areas and more of a flood area.
Yeah, I think one thing that we often kind of forget with the natural channel, they require a lot of space. The Lewis Creek section in particular is very close to Byers Street. There might not be room to completely get it into a natural channel. That's kind of what this site plan is for, looking and seeing if these are possible with the space they have and what that could look like. It's not necessarily going to give us the design that we would go forward with. It's just, is there room? How would that look? What could it look like? This is a very first step. And then in addition to that kind of aspect of it, we definitely want to know what they are going to look like for storms and how they're going to perform in different storm levels. So the scope is also going to include stormwater modeling scenarios for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm with and without restrictions downstream. This chart's a little confusing, so I'm going to jump into this that shows each option one by one. Scenario 1 is replacing the Peyton Creek and the confluence with a completely new tunnel. It would be sized up a little bit. And then Lewis Creek in this scenario would just be repaired. Scenario 2 would be daylighting the Peyton Creek first section in a concrete channel while just repairing the tunnel for Lewis Creek. Scenario 3 would then be daylighting this first section in a natural channel and just repairing the tunnel for Lewis Creek. The 4th section would be daylighting both in concrete channels. The 5th section would be daylighting both in natural channels. And the reason we're looking into different scenarios is because it will impact how the water flows through them and how they ultimately handle each storm level. I do just want to make one note that our consultant doesn't feel like any of these options are going to have a huge flood relief. And that kind of comes back to the 2021 study they did for the city that showed addressing flooding downtown is going to be a very expensive, very difficult thing to achieve. And just daylighting or just repairing is not going to really fix anything. We know that the drainage area to the wharf and the restrictions downstream, like immediately downstream, just provide too much of a challenge to really address flooding by just doing a project in the wharf. So I would implore you all to review that 2021 study again. That kind of shows what options Wiley Wilson did bring that had a larger impact.
Can they quantify at all what the benefits would be for these options? Say, for example, a 5% reduction in 100-year level storm, something, when you say it wouldn't be a great benefit.
So we know now that the Peyton Creek channel can handle about a 10-year storm. And we know the Lewis Creek cannot even handle a 10-year storm. So this will show us what it can handle with the different configurations, and then we can compare to what is already there. And for each of these scenarios, they will give us an opinion of cost. So we'll also be able to compare the cost of each scenario. And just like in the site plans, they will model a preferred option for us, which again is whichever combination we would like to see. I think that covers most of the scope. One other comment I want to make based on some questions I've already gotten. This doesn't look at turning the wharf into a park just because we're not there yet. Again, we're looking to see if daylighting fits here, if it's a good option, what kind of benefits it would provide. It's independent of specifically turning the wharf into a park. That would be a next step. If we decide to go with daylighting, then we would look at how a park fits in. We're just not there yet. So I know that was a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Just for everyone's awareness, I emailed Willow earlier and Jeff was on the email. I personally don't see the need to consider the alternative where we just do the concrete channels. That doesn't get us anything that we want to get out of it. So if there's an opportunity to reduce scenarios and save cost on the study, I would certainly be supportive of removing the concrete unless there's something there to compare it to.
It was really chosen just, it's an option. It's what we have at Mill Street. But if you all agree that that's not something you want to look into, we can ask Wiley Wilson to modify the scope.
And I'd also just reiterate what Jeff said earlier is that I feel like we should be aggressive on the daylight option. I certainly don't want them to feel like they want to take up the minimum amount possible to do a natural. I think we should consider upwards of, what if we took 50% of the wharf for the daylighting option for the natural scenario. Just because we can always pull back, but just let's
Yeah.
get an estimate of what the best case scenario is from a flood mitigation standpoint.
We can definitely tell them that our preference is that they, for the natural channels, use as much space as they feel like they need to and that they can there in the wharf parking lot.
I had always, and I guess we haven't really fully discussed this yet, but as long as we're looking at it, it's hard to just describe it. But I mean, to me, the daylight natural stream part of it would be the bottom end where it goes on the east end of the wharf there. And I mean, keep the west end in tunnel and then maybe keep that main entrance area there, because we also do get the lot that is almost across from the courthouse there back. That is city property. So that would largely replace parking lost, at the bottom of that east end on there. And then I just see that as natural stream. Then it goes into tunnel openings at either end, goes under Buyer Street, comes in from Johnson Street on that end and the Lewis Creek end as well. And then maybe that's green going further into the wharf there with seating and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, we're just at the beginning of discussion of what it can possibly be, chasing funding, all of that. But this is just, this is a discussion that now is the time to talk about it, because if we put a top back on it, we won't be able to, nobody will be talking about it for another 75 years. So.
But also, back to your point, Adam, aren't we going to have to replace those concrete walls to those tunnels anyway?
In a daylighting scenario,
Yes.
I guess it depends. It could be some combination of some urban channelization and more natural stream characteristics. I was just saying, I think we should be aggressive as possible to see what the biggest footprint is, and we can always scale back.
Right.
I agree with that approach.
Okay.
And one more question. I was curious, Willow, you said that the analysis would consider with and without downstream restrictions. Why would we consider without if we're getting ready to replace Buyer Street tunnel, I mean, we're not going to rip that out anytime soon. So why would we consider an option without that restriction?
It's more for comparing the options to each other. It kind of shows what it would look like under ideal situation. That is not what we would have. So we're also modeling it with the known restrictions.
Okay.
Why does one of the scenarios involve actual repair of a tunnel? Rather, the name of this study is daylighting, but scenarios involves keeping one of the tunnels and repairing it. Why would you even consider that?
It goes back to the fact that something has to be done for these tunnels. We can't really leave it as they are. It's a safety hazard. So an option would be to just replace the tunnel. And the best place to kind of compare that to daylighting is this study.
That's our baseline.
As it is the control, yeah.
Is the study going to consider ongoing costs as well as the one-time cost of doing this? In other words, some of the studies that I've read suggest that maintaining a natural channel over time is much less than maintaining a tunnel.
Currently, I believe they will just consider construction costs. But again, if you all agree that you'd like to have that added to the scope, we can ask Wiley Wilson to amend it.
Looking at the long game, we want to see the greatest benefit for the city, economic, environmental, and cost.
Mhm.
So that too, I think.
And I mean, the real long-term hopeful economic benefit would be a draw to the wharf, and make it more of a vibrant area.
Build a dam.
Like a orphaned and vulnerable area and drive more traffic to it. And
Yeah, right now it's a sea of asphalt.
Righty,
Yes.
any more questions for Willow, but Miss Hughes, I'm sorry, for Miss Hughes before
Or,
we.
just for Ms. Hughes to have,
Mhm.
what's next? Are we all in agreement to drop the
Thank-
panel scenario?
I heard that, and I heard operate like kind of ongoing costs to
Mhm.
maintain the options.
Bring it to the back.
I agree with those two.
Right.
Yeah, I
What
certainly have
else?
zero interest in a concrete.
Yeah. Is that,
Anyone that just does it.
I'll get with Wiley
Yeah.
Wilson and I'll ask them to amend it and get us a new
Yeah,
cost.
if that's
and-
going to reduce the scope and
and then
cost
I
of
think we'll
the,
come back, we will come back to you when we have that and present that and have a discussion about it, just to make sure that's kind of where
Yeah,
you would
I
like to
think-
see it. Does that work?
Thank you. I think those were the two recommendations.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
And thank you, Mr.
Hopefully the
Hart,
cost goes
and also
yes.
Mr. Knight. That was a team effort. Thank you all.
I have a question about the bigger process. When do we foresee kind of engaging the public and having conversations about our overall vision for this area and imagining the possibilities, looking at the rationale, the why of why we're doing that? The project pages are great. I think it's a terrific way to inform the public about the progress, particularly the triage piece, just fixing the parts that are broken. But for daylighting, we definitely need consciousness raising. We need conversation back and forth to build consensus on for that much more disruptive, much more costly, but ultimate, potentially yield much greater gains as well.
We would certainly involve the public. We definitely don't want to do anything without that, but this scope is still kind of a first step of what's possible. It's not really included to engage the public yet, more just because it's kind of engineering based. Is it possible? Can we fit it in? Which one's best? And that is more going to come from what the data shows us and then what council wants. And if we were to move forward, that would be when public involvement comes in.
Terrific.
I have one more question for Mr. Hart.
You have
It was-
exactly
I was just
30
curious,
seconds.
I was just curious if there was anything from a geotechnical standpoint that raised concern with the current tunnel repair.
No, what they found was, 'cause they did the cores there on either side of the existing tunnel on Byers and Johnson Street. It was about from the surface there at the top of the asphalt, between 20 and 23 feet down to solid bedrock. There's a lot of kind of found some fragmented areas of rock and alluvial, but yeah, that's, so they, they're sizing their foundations accordingly and getting them deep enough to account for that. And so there wasn't like, oh, wow, we gotta back up and do some additional mitigation for it.
So nothing from concern from a larger picture like
Correct.
this so far.
Right, nothing. And again, that was looking just strictly at the point of
The tunnels,
repairs in
yeah.
the streets. But you would think there's a chance that might be indicative of what's in the rest of the vicinity.
All righty. Thank you. Are you happy? You satisfied, Mr.
Yeah.
Counselor Campbell? We are moving on to our final item of tonight's work session. I will now entertain a motion to enter a closed meeting. Going once,
Madam Mayor,
Counselor Campbell.
I move to enter a closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel for a specific legal matter involving a personnel policy and the First Amendment of the United States Constitution pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion? No? All righty, Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Blair. The work session is now adjourned. I hope to see all of you back here at 7. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to reconvene in an open meeting.
Mayor Edwards.
Yes,
I
Counselor
move-
Woods.
I move that council reconvene in an open meeting and certify to the best of each member's knowledge that only lawfully existing public business matters were discussed and that only public business matters as identified in the closed meeting motion were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Miss Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye. It is, the work session is now adjourned. And it's now 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the September 25th, 2025 regular meeting of the Staunton City Council to order. Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening and welcome. Thank you for being here. This evening's invocation comes to us from Councilman Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor Edwards. So full disclosure, first, I had a hard time finding inspiration for this evening's invocation. That being said, this past Monday was the first day of by far my favorite season of the year. Second, so I went to Chat GPT for the first time to help me find inspiration for the season of fall. So after some significant personal adjustments, I actually think I came up with something that I know is relatable in my personal life, and I feel that it's also relatable with everything going on around us in the current state of affairs. So with that, as we enter the autumn season, guide us to embrace the beauty of change, to let go of what no longer serves us, to find strength in the quiet moments of transition. May the crisp air awaken our senses, the harvest remind us of gratitude, and the twilight skies inspire reflection and peace. As nature prepares to rest and renew, allow us to benefit from this cycle of growth and release within ourselves. In this season of transformation, may we walk with grace, rooted deeply in the present, ready to bloom again with the promise of spring.
Thank you, sir.
Amen.
Appreciate that. It was beautiful. Righty, well, I'll share with you my mayor's report, and then we'll share a few comments from counselors. I wanted to share that the Virginia Program for Aging Services, or VPAS, did earn the designation of dementia-friendly SAW by the organization Dementia Friendly America. DFA defines a dementia-friendly community as one that actively works to support individuals with dementia and their caregivers, allowing them to live independently for as long as possible and by being respected, included, and engaged. I have made a helpful QR code. Hopefully that it's a helpful QR code that Mr. Knight is hanging up there. And if you click that with your camera, it will take you directly to VPAS, where you can find out more information about the programs and resources offered there for all individuals 60 and over. And I am fast approaching that. So VPAS also, which is a Virginia state program to support our older residents, recently won a grant. And this grant is going to support a new program at their center in Waynesboro, but it's open to Stantonians. And it's called The Gathering Place. And it's going to start on November 12th and will run every Wednesday from 10 to 2 p.m. And it will be an opportunity for socializing and support for those living with dementia and their caregivers. So I hope you will be able to take advantage of that if it applies to you. So I'm looking forward to a fun weekend with Queen City Mischief and Magic. I will be volunteering on Saturday. I will be handling a character, and I will also be volunteering at the information booth. So I hope to see you down there, and I hope if you're going, you have a great time and that we have great weather. Finally, on October 2nd, at the library's Little Lunch Music, none other than Lori Struther, the dreaded blues lady, will be playing. This very popular monthly concert is held at on the top floor in the meeting room from 12 to 1. They're usually pretty full, so if you go, try to get there early to get a seat. An accomplished musician and working professional, Ms. Struther is also the vice mayor of Waynesboro, and I hope you can attend. I'm gonna go. Are any more comments from counselors?
I'd like to thank the Staunton West End Business Association again for hosting this past Thursday's educational session on our Churchill Avenue and West Beverly street improvements. Mr. Rhodes and Ms. Wilson from Community Development and myself attended the event, and we had a good turnout and even got some media coverage, so that was good. Just also want to share, I attended the last portion of this past weekend's African American Heritage Festival. I wanted to see Staunton Black Business Collective in partnership with Shenandoah Community Capital Fund hosted a business pitch competition. 3 of our local Black-owned businesses participated. It was just exciting to see the community come together to support that, a grant program to support our businesses. It was awesome, well attended, and I hope to see it grow going forward.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell.
So to
Yes, ma'am.
piggyback off of what he said, this weekend was great for the African American Heritage Multicultural Festival. We had a great weekend. The weather stayed nice and it was well attended. City was out there. We had the libraries out there. We had Staunton City Schools out there. We had a other lot of organizations just to show up and participate, and it was good. So.
I'll also chime in. I attended the same Staunton West End Business Association meeting, and it was just a excellent presentation and a great model of how to engage with the public, to educate the public, get feedback, answer questions. It just sort of made the case that these road improvements that we're making, that adding sidewalk, adding bike lanes, it promotes business, makes the roads safer for everyone, and helps community members to stay connected. And a great takeaway, that something new for me, is that it's a terrific return on investment. That Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that the increase in tourism and other revenues resulting from new bike lanes is 8 to 9 times the investment to create those bike lanes.
Yes, caveat, once you build your network and culture up to a certain level. So we're starting up from the ground up, but yes, that's where we want to get to.
So it's a great investment for the city. I attended on September 15th, a Building Bridges Forum that hosted the 2 candidates for the Staunton Commonwealth Attorneys race. I thank them for sponsoring that, and just encourage everybody to inform yourself about, it's an important race, important for the future of the city, and please be informed and vote.
I was just gonna thank Building Bridges as well for putting that on. It was wonderful to see so much turnout. It was literally standing room only. I was on the floor over there. And so it was just a great turnout. And as a government teacher, it just made my heart happy to see so many people in the community out to learn more, and especially for a Commonwealth Attorneys race. It was exciting. So thank you, Building Bridges.
And if most people don't know, that early voting had already started as of last Friday. So it is here in City Hall, and they do, I know it wasn't mentioned, but we do have ADA accessibles for anybody that can't get out their vehicle. The parking spot that is right here on Central Avenue is available, and all you gotta do is call and somebody will come out and get you voted, get you a ballot. So
They also, they crossed 500 today, I believe, in the early voting on that too. So that was good to see. Let's see, today there was the opening, the official finish of the stream remediation in Gypsy Hill Park for Pagan Creek. So it's great to see that hit its stride on that. That was something that we were able to do with 90% grant funding, at least on that, which was nice. And it looks great. I mean, it's you can look down in there and you see fish swimming around in it, and it just looks like a lot healthier than it has been. And kudos to the people doing it. With such a wet spring and summer on that, they almost got washed out a couple of times, but they made it through, and it's just great to see it healthy and vibrant.
Thank you. All righty. Oh, go ahead.
I'll
Sorry.
throw one announcement in. Tomorrow evening, September 26th from 4 to 7, the Shea House, the historic Shea House at Fairview Cemetery, they're having a fundraiser. It's a lawn party. There's a bake sale, there's games, dinners for purchase, a yard sale. And it's at Augusta Street, United Methodist Church, 325 North Augusta Street. And they really need community support to finish help restoring that house, which is a very rich and important part of Stanton's history. So your support would be greatly appreciated. You can also support them through the Community Foundation online. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you. All right, everybody. So Counselor Woods, do you have a report
Yes,
for us?
I sure do.
Good.
So the nominations committee moves for the Stanton City Council to appoint the following individuals to boards and commissions for the terms stated. To appoint Timothy DeSimone
Yeah.
to the Youth
Yeah.
Commission for a 3-year term beginning October 1st, 2025 and ending September 30th, 2028. To reappoint Captain Brian Brown, Jim Pritney, and Dan Wright to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for a 2-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2027. To reappoint Deneen Brannick to the Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2028. To reappoint Rebecca Harmon to the Landscape Advisory Board for a 3-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2028. To reappoint Fred Blanton and Mary Jo Krikorian. Thank you. I kept repeating that so I wouldn't mess it up, but it came out wrong. To the Lewis Creek Watershed Advisory Committee for a 3-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2028. To reappoint John Byer and Alyssa McDonald to the Recreation Advisory Commission for a 3-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2028. To reappoint Assistant City Manager Amanda Kaufman to the Valley Community Service Board for a 3-year term beginning September 1st, 2025 and ending August 31st, 2028. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor Woods. This does not require a motion, so a second, I'm sorry. So Mr. Blair, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Carries.
And thank you to the nominations committee for doing. Moving on to item A, the consent agenda. For procedure memorandum number 14, it's the policy of City Council to have routine, non-controversial items placed on the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be voted on in one motion. If separate discussion of an item is requested by any member of council, that item shall be removed and considered separately at the end of the regular meeting agenda. Do any members wish to remove any items to be placed at the end of the regular meeting agenda for separate consideration? All righty, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor Edwards,
Counselor Woods.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Further discussion? Mr. Blair, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B is a public hearing on amendments to City of Staunton Enterprise Zone and boundary and incentives. Ms. Beauregard.
Jessica Blythe, who is the Assistant Director for Economic Development, will walk through this item this evening and any questions you have before you hold the public hearing.
Great. Good evening, Ms. Blythe. Well,
Good evening, Mayor Edwards and council members. I'm excited to present this to you guys this evening. I've been with the city since December, and this has been pretty much something I've worked on since day 2. So excited to bring this to you guys. The EDA has heard this several times. Council Overholtzer can attest to that, but excited to kind of bring you guys in on this, where we've landed and what I think the benefit for our business community will be. So tonight we'll cover 2 things, as Ms. Beauregard mentioned. The major components are boundary expansion and our recharged incentives, again, designed to better serve our business community and drive economic growth. These amendments represent months of data analysis, stakeholder engagement, and strategic planning to address the real challenges that our businesses are facing. So before we dive into the work that we've done, wanted to give a bit of a brief introduction to enterprise zones, what they are, how they exist within the state and then within our locality. So enterprise zones were created to provide a framework to coordinate activities, especially in distressed areas. So they are available both at a statewide level and then at the local level. The statewide incentives are set by DHCD and administered by DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development. They offer 2 incentives, the Real Property Investment Grant and a Job Creations Grant. At the local level, we determined our incentives by this process. So currently, we have 8 incentives. You can see them here. They range from high-tech business location grants to property tax exemptions. But what we noticed, one of the things I was charged with as I came into my position was to kind of look at the utilization. We have significantly underutilized these incentives at a local level. Couple fast facts at the local level. Our enterprise zone was originally established in 1990. It in its original existence expired and was only set for 20 years. So it completely expired in 2010, but we were able to reapply. So the current zone was redesignated in 2010 and expires in 2044. Amendments to the boundaries can be made every 12 months as well as the incentives. So we could be back here in 12 months talking about this again if we wanted to. The latest incentive amendment was in 2015 and the latest boundary amendments were made in 2006. So you can see not only has this program not really been utilized in recent years, but it also has not been paid close attention to. One of the kind of factors or things to know with our local zone, your acreage for inclusion is determined based off of your original application. In our original application, we were set to base our acreage off of the percent of land versus percent population. So 7% of our total acreage can be included in the enterprise zone. That equates to 899 acres, and we are able to have 3 non-contiguous zones within the city limits. So first question, why amend? I alluded to underutilization of these incentives, as well as the fact that these incentives were last touched in 2016. Since then, of the 8 incentives that we're currently offering, only 2 of them have been utilized by local businesses. The first of which is the first incentive, high-tech business location and expansion. This was last utilized in 2019. This is similar to some of the benefits that are offered at the state level. Incentive number 7 is a property tax exemption. This was our most utilized incentive. However, even though it's an enterprise zone incentive set by EDA and through our office, it is run through the assessor's office. So applications for this, for the enterprise zone, run through the assessor's office. And there's a very similar program that the assessor's office offers to all city residential or commercial properties, that's known as the Rehabilitation Tax Abatement Program. So you will see that this incentive is not included in the proposed incentives. There have been several discussions with the assessor's office since I started about some of the confusion between the 2 different programs. And so moving forward, we felt like for this next incentive amendment that we would consolidate to that one program, offer a consistent program throughout the city, see what implications there may have been from that. If we need to pivot, we can pivot, but we believe that this will serve our businesses.
In addition to underutilization, we've already seen community feedback from the comp plan process calling for more funded incentives as well as improving incentives for building owners, property owners to be able to maintain their buildings and create job opportunities. Additionally, the West End plan that was completed directed growth towards the West End and recommended these boundary adjustments. So we were able to capture the recommendations of that West End plan within the boundary amendment. Wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the process that we used, how we moved through amending or proposing amendments. So the first thing that I did was collect data and review that data and then use that to propose incentives to the Economic Development Authority, the EDA, for their initial review. After I had their feedback and commentary, I took it to our business owners. So if you recall back in February when we did our business survey, there were questions about the enterprise zone and the utilization there, as well as asking some of those businesses if they would be interested in being stakeholders for the enterprise zone process. So I was able to hold 2 different rounds of engagement with those stakeholders and get their feedback on the originally proposed incentives, and we're able to target kind of what they were interested in, and we were able to make a couple of rounds of edits based off of their feedback. Additionally, we had discussions with internal city departments to get their feedback on how this would work, what are good thresholds, make sure that we're not becoming a burden to other departments as we create these incentives. And then we had a final review by the Economic Development Authority, where they gave us like the final thumbs up of, yes, you've got it, you've got something good to present here. Then we give this to DHCD, Department of Housing and Community Development. They gave us a pre-thumbs up to present to you guys before the public hearing, making sure that what we've put together makes sense, but also we're not losing value from those 8 incentives that we had originally. So one of the things that they really look at is if you're offering something when you're amending, they don't want you to lose any value in what your incentives are. So they felt good about what we've put together and what I'm presenting to you all this evening. So a little bit of the data that I dove into, I looked at the state level across all of the enterprise zones, but dove into each locality to see what are other localities offering. Currently in Virginia, there are 45 active enterprise zones, and they offer over 150 different incentive offerings. When I did my audit, what I found was that there were 7 incentives that stood out to me that were offered by at least 25% a quarter or 11 of the localities. And you can see those represented here in this chart. The differences in the color within each bar just represents a little bit of a difference in how the language around that incentive was. So it could be a rebate versus a waiver, or for water and sewer connection versus a rate discount. So kind of lumped them into categories there for getting from that 150 to something that was really digestible. Again, referencing the business survey and the findings that we had there, 80% of our businesses, when we surveyed them, said that they would choose Staunton again. This indicates to us that business owners want to be doing business in Staunton. We also learned that 18 of the businesses that participated, as well as 18 want to increase their employment, 25 wanted to maintain their current employment levels, which again shows us our businesses want to stay here and grow here. Some of the challenges that we identified were difficulty in accessing capital, workforce issues, some utility and permitting costs. And then one of the other things I wanted to mention here is the limited awareness of some of the programs that were being offered, and then confusion between the SCDA and the Economic Development Office, and then regulation processes. So these were all things that we considered as we were presenting different incentives to the EDA and to our stakeholders. Again, on utilization, 48% of the businesses that were surveyed had not used any kind of business assistance programs, but 25% utilized COVID-related assistance. 16% had used resources such as the Shenandoah Community Capital Fund or our local chamber, and 9% have utilized state level programs. There's a lot of uncertainty around what programs are available, what would be a good fit. To me, what this says is we need to do a better job of educating our businesses on what's being offered. There's an overall lack of awareness of what's available, as well as challenges with accessibility. So in stakeholder groups and in anecdotal, conversations with businesses, seeing that some of the incentives were not worth the application, right? So making sure that as we are amending our incentives, we're also looking at our processes and making sure that we're not creating barriers to the grants and the incentives that we're offering, that we're making sure that things are streamlined and accessible. So that kind of brings me into the incentives. I'll pause to see if you guys have any questions on what I've presented so far or on the process before I walk you through the 5 incentives that the EDA has given us to present to you all. Awesome. Okay. So the first incentive, this one is kind of a combination of 2 existing incentives. This is the large business incentive or investment incentive. It's targeting our manufacturing and our larger businesses. You can see here the benefits are over 3 years with a investment over $5 million. There would be an additional 2 years of the incentive at a lower percent of rebate on their tax increases. The requirements here are that they're spending money on machinery and tools or in business personal property. There's also the job creation component of this. So that was kind of what we combined in this incentive. This is very similar to incentives we're offering, except we've lowered the threshold and combined them into one incentive. You can see here we're trying to address capital investment barriers, some equipment modernization needs, as well as looking at our manufacturing sector being competitive when attracting those kinds of businesses. And then always wanting to think about job creation in our larger employers and how we can help to kind of incentivize and lessen the burden on that. This next incentive is a facade renovation grant. Again, targeting some of our smaller businesses, retail, restaurants, commercial properties. This would be up to a $10,000 grant. The total of the grant would not exceed 33% of eligible costs. It would cover some interior renovations, especially those that focus on ADA accessibility. It addresses the business appearance, functionality, customer experience improvements, vacancy issues, as well as revitalizing downtown and, of course, the West End. You can see there the requirements that we have. It's pretty broad as far as types of buildings, commercial, industrial, as well as mixed use. We are requiring a pre-approval, so you apply for and get the grant before you would start the work so that we can make sure that there's compliance with everything else, regulations, permitting, et cetera. There is a 12-month requirement for completion, but within the application, some leniency there, kind of as we heard earlier, like if you talk to us, we'll work with you. Next, this one was really popular with our stakeholders when we had our stakeholder group, small business technology and training grant. So again, we looked at a couple of different ways to try to access or to try to address the need for capital and accessing capital. And this and the next incentive were kind of ways that we felt like we could assist both small and medium-sized businesses who are either starting up or modernizing, expanding. So this would provide up to $5,000 for technology improvements for businesses. Of that $5,000 or of the grant, 25% of the cost could be towards training employees. So again, addressing a digital age innovation, the workforce skills that we're seeing that are deficient, and then just also making our businesses more operationally efficient. You can see here the requirements, location, we're looking at business, we're targeting businesses under 50 employees, and then this is a matched requirement. Oh, I said the next one. They were not in the order I thought they were. So the one after this is the other one we got a lot of great stakeholder feedback on. But job creation performance grant, again, this helps both our growing businesses who are adding employees, new businesses. So this is going to help with the being able to stay competitive with wages, wage pressures, helping address training needs, as we have an additional bonus here for skills training. And we've got that defined in the ordinance as far as what would qualify for that additional bonus. So again, feel like this kind of addresses capital and cash flow there for businesses. The final one is the marketing support grant. So again, this one was popular with the businesses that we spoke with. We're looking at new businesses and expanding businesses to provide up to $2,500 for marketing activities. This would be, again, whatever their total cost is, we would reimburse 50% up to the $2,500. However, if they're using a Staunton provider, we would reimburse 100% of their costs. So if they were, doing a campaign that was $2,500, originally we would reimburse the 50% of that $2,500. But if they use a Staunton provider, then we would reimburse all of that. We're looking at both digital and traditional marketing. You can see the requirements here. Again, getting this work approved before you do the marketing so that we're not paying for something that you've already done. And again, this was a way that we felt like we could help with startups, the access to capital, as well as our businesses who are doing well and expanding, and help them reestablish with customer bases. Also, the component of adding in the Staunton providers for a larger portion helps us create that business to business ecosystem and strengthens the local economy. Any questions about those incentives before we talk about boundaries? Adam?
2 questions.
Sure.
First, the large business investment incentive, just from terms of right sizing that to fit Staunton, do we have an idea of approximately how many businesses in, say, the past 10 to 20 years have come to Staunton that would qualify? Not necessarily in the zone, but just in general.
So I think it's good to look at the utilization data that I presented, and that looked going back to about 2016, 2017. And we had one that qualified and used that first incentive that currently exists. And so I think that's what utilization has been. I haven't done an in-depth analysis on looking at all businesses that have been attracted and whether or not they would or would not have qualified for that. But again, going back to part of why I think our utilization is down is because of the messaging and the education part of it.
And I assume that the new website investment is going to take advantage of.
Yeah, you're stealing my slides.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. Yeah. Between the feedback we got from business survey, right? Hearing you all and what you guys want our department to look like. And then knowing that we have our new website coming, it's been really important for Amanda and I to make sure that we're having more discussions with our businesses, and that we are, I was in preparing for tonight, I wasn't nervous at all, but as I was talking about it, I was saying, I've had this conversation so many times, not only with EDA, but anytime we're talking to a business or we're out at a chamber event, people are like, what are you working on? And I'm like, let me tell you, Enterprise Zone. And then like the back of my hand can recite all of the things that we're doing, and businesses are really excited. But it doesn't stop there, right? So there's the piece of the website. I'll mention in a little bit too, newsletter and some other things that we're excited about as far as spreading word. So little preview there. Second question.
And then the facade and renovation grant, would that be eligible to site work or just the building?
So we talked about some site work. We were talking about landscaping, some of those different requirements. And so we will have to kind of suss out in that application, kind of the what is and what isn't. But we want it to be, again, we don't want to create barriers for the application, but we also want it to be reasonable so that it's not everyone.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just think in this boundary, there's going to be lots of opportunities where there's going to be need to do some parking lot repair.
Yeah.
Landscaping, beautification, and even you talked about ADA access in the building, but also getting people from the street to the front door. And just a thought, if maybe including an additional incentive under that one is if you consolidate business entrances, you get an extra bonus.
Good feedback.
I suggested incorporating landscape improvements in this particular incentive. I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
Not sure the EDA really bid on it, but I think it makes sense.
Well, I just like Gloria's, what they just did to their parking lot on Central. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's their parking lot, but it cleans up that section of the street.
And it
And-
fits with our whole West End plan.
Yeah. And I think you all are probably aware too of at Art Hive, the work that they're trying to do with their ramp. So something like that would
Right.
qualify as well.
Yeah.
They know that?
Yes, I've had
Okay, good.
conversations with them. And
Don't
that
tell
brings
them.
us to the next part. So with our proposed boundary amendment, as I mentioned in the opening, we were really prioritizing adding properties, business that are zoned industrial, commercial business out towards the West End, both on West Beverly as well as out Churchville. So like all the way out to Stanley Meat Market and the dance theater, Valley Dance. So really excited to be able to do that. We have met with SWEBA. They know this, they're excited. So excited to be able to follow through and deliver on what was presented in the West End plan. In addition to those additions, we did have some removals. And they weren't not significant. So you can see here on the map, the reds are removals from the enterprise zone. Let me get my numbers. 180 parcels were removed from the enterprise zone. 167 of those were residential. Residential properties, properties zoned residential are not eligible for enterprise zone incentives. So in order to be eligible, if you're zoned residential, you would have to get that special use permit. But by right, they cannot participate in the enterprise zone. So what we've done is I've gone through, I did a deep audit of every single parcel that was in the enterprise zone, identified any of those that were residential to be removed. We are also removing roadways that were unnecessary that we no longer needed to connect areas. And then we removed partial parcels. So in my early conversations with DHCD, we had identified some parcels that were in our existing enterprise zone that only a percentage of the parcel was included. And I was given instruction to either fully include or fully remove those parcels. So you can see there are a couple of large red areas on the map. Those are some of those that very small portions of those lots were included, but the removal identifies the whole lot. So we didn't actually remove the whole lot because it was never fully included to begin with. Questions on that?
Soon to be contiguous, you have to count the acreage of the public right of way. Going
Yes,
up.
so there's rules as far as like if it's a 4-lane road, we can count only 2 lanes. But wherever it's 2 lanes, we have to include all 2 lanes. So yeah, that was really just some housekeeping roadways. But again, additions primarily focused. You also see there are a couple of larger green areas. Those again were those areas where partial parcels were included, and now we're including the entire parcel. Our first zone will be that Frontier Drive section out where like the Chick-fil-A and all of that is. It's not, doesn't include that. It's that parcel that the Frontier Culture Foundation owns because we've identified that as a great opportunity for development. And then the second zone is kind of this downtown out towards the West End. And then the third zone that you can see in the upper right quadrant of the map is Green Hills. So again, the green there is just including the whole parcel. So with Adam's setup, we're going to talk a little bit about what comes next. Where do we go from here? So tonight we'll have the public hearing. Once we have the public hearing, next meeting, you all will consider this and we'll have ordinances and a resolution for approval. Once that's done, it goes to DHCD. They review it again in its entirety and they give us an approval. From there, then we can roll out. So a big part of that is engaging with partners. Amanda and I are already making sure that we have those connections. We've got contacts from regular conversations and attending things with the Downtown Development Association, with SWEBA, with the Shenandoah Community Capital Fund, the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. the chamber. I know Adam and Alice talked about the SBBC, Stanton Black Business Collective. We've been engaged with them as well. I've already set up a date with SWEBA in February to come and present on the new incentives to them, to their crew. And we anticipate being able to do something similar with some of these other organizations. We will do a mailing to all property owners within the enterprise zone with updates. So if they've been in the enterprise zone, like, hey, these are the new incentives. They're new to the enterprise zone. Hey, you're now in this. Here are the incentives. And then really important total information sessions, not just with our community partners, but ourselves. And then a big part of this is the ongoing attention to the program and monitoring the data, getting data as we have new businesses of would they qualify? Let's make sure they have this information. So it's not speculating as would they have, it's they would have, but they didn't. Like they decided not to pursue it. When I was speaking with John Blair about this, he gave me this great quote, and I'll circle back to it in a bit. I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work by Thomas Edison. So when thinking about our current incentives and utilization, it hasn't been a failure. We just haven't found what works best for our businesses. Some other initiatives that are coming out of our office that are supporting this, as I mentioned, is the website. So we've already begun working with our team on the website. We anticipate to launch the first quarter of 2026. Alongside that, we're also going to launch a newsletter for our local businesses as the audience. So this will be a big part of what's talked about there. And then lastly, Amanda and I have started doing Walkabout Wednesdays. So on off Wednesdays, when we don't have development review, we're out in front of businesses, checking in, saying hi, again, communicating kind of what's happening in our office and seeing how we can be supportive. I know it came up in the work session, but the meetings with the wharf have also been a big part of how we're kind of talking about some of this messaging and also imagining with them other ways that we can support them as they continue to kind of go through what they're going through. That is all I have for you guys. But again, want to thank our businesses who participated. Nikki has been extremely engaged from Ciders from Mars. We really appreciate her always
Hey,
showing up
Nikki.
for us. Yeah. So yeah, I'll yield for any questions that you guys might have for me, either on the incentives, the boundary amendments, anything like that. I didn't mention, but as part of removing folks from the boundaries, all of those property owners did receive letters.
Mhm.
So they've all been made aware of what's happening.
One
really-
statement, could we get a bigger map?
Sure. Yeah.
So originally when I was working with Jessica Wright in GIS, we had like each zone, but then when you're doing all of it, it's like, how do you?
How does it fit together?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but it's just great to see it back and being pushed again, because it felt like it had kind of gotten dormant for a while with it, and it seems like a really great incentive program.
Yeah, we're excited, and this process has not been for the faint of heart. So I have been working really closely with DHCD, but I'm also part of a Rural Leadership Institute. And as part of our program, we have to have a community impact project. And my project is actually going to be completing a guidebook to share with other local zone administrators to say, like, this is what we did, this is what the process was, here are some templates and things that you can use. Because there's a lot to navigate, and every time I thought I had it figured out, something else popped up. So being able to help other people in my shoes do this with a little bit less headache.
And Ms. Blythe, this
Yeah.
is a terrific presentation. And thank you also, Ms. DeMeo, for the work of your office. And it's exciting. And I'm thinking, again, looking at your new website, it's the perfect opportunity to be integrating I would imagine the administration of a lot of these things, keeping track of allowing businesses to go in and do the applications and get that immediate, okay, I was turned down or wasn't turned down, or I'm going to get $10,000.
We're really looking forward to having kind of what we're hoping is a one-stop shop for our businesses, no matter what they're looking for, whether it's those incentives or whether it's who do I call about this permit issue
Yeah.
or who do I, all of that. We talked a lot internally, like with community development too, as we were kind of going through some of these things about how can our departments collaborate closer to make some of these processes a little bit more seamless.
Right.
Even as we've been talking to new businesses that have been coming on board now, making sure we're bringing STDA and tourism to the table and all having that conversation together so we can really hit it holistically and from all angles. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to add, as liaison to the EDA, it's been a terrific data-driven process
Thank
that
you.
makes the changes based on identified needs by businesses and has really been an underused program. And I think this helps ensure that we'll get more uptake. The downside, if you want to express it that way, is that I believe we only have $20,000 allocated to this program.
Set
So
me up.
if people start biting, we could run out real quick, but that would be a great problem to have, in
yeah.
my opinion.
Yes.
And we could consider, as in our new budget cycle, a bigger allocation.
I had
would-
in my
I would
notes
love to be,
to address
to
that
have that
and
challenge.
completely ran over it. But yes, that's correct. So right now, the budget for these enterprise zone incentives is $20,000. That's down most recently from $50,000, but there was evidence to support that it wasn't being utilized. My goal is to be coming to you guys and saying, hey, I've got all of these businesses lined up. This is what I need. Yeah. And even based off of the stakeholder surveys and the groups that we had, our 20,000's gone.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, of course, they have to apply and qualify and all of the things. But if everyone who has talked about wanting to apply, both through those stakeholder groups and our outside conversations, that money will be gone. Great problem to have, right?
It is. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Ms.
you're
Blythe.
welcome.
Great presentation. All righty. In a moment, I will open the public hearing. This is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about this specific topic on the agenda. We ask that you please give your name, your address, and then keep your remarks to 5 minutes or less. When you reach the 5-minute time limit, I will let you know that your time has expired. For Zoom participants, please raise your hand now if you wish to speak on this particular public hearing. If you raise your hand now, you will also be able to speak during the council meeting for other public hearings and for matters from the public. Once everyone who wishes to speak has had an opportunity, I will close the public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. So if you wish to speak, please approach the podium. And we will alternate between people physically present and those on the Zoom platform. Good evening and welcome.
Evening, Rebecca Bennett, 920 West Beverly Street. I'm in the old Bible Way Church. I'm in a non-conformed zoning of residential. I didn't know anything about being an enterprise zoning, but I wish to be removed from one of the properties that are being removed because I have been quite open for 4 years with all the different people I've met with the city of Staunton about opening a business in that building. I'm getting close to being able to do that. Any questions?
No,
'Cause I didn't
this is
know
just
this.
a public comment period. It's not
Okay.
for answers. You certainly can talk to staff afterwards, so
Okay.
thank
Thank
you. Mhm. Is there anyone with their hands raised?
Madam Mayor, we have no hands raised.
Would anybody else like to speak on this agenda item? All righty, still no hands raised.
That's correct. No hands raised.
I will entertain a motion.
There's
There's no motion. Thank you. I can entertain it all I want. No one is going to recognize it. Oh, closing the public hearing. God, I'm so sorry. Just staring at it like it's going to tell me something.
So this will
Public
be,
hearing is now closed. Thank you.
this will come back to council at the next meeting.
This will
for
come back to council
consideration.
for
Yes, ma'am.
consideration. Thank you. Ms. Blythe told me that. All righty, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beauregard. Moving on to item C. We will hear about an ordinance to amend fiscal year 2026 budget ordinance for the city of Staunton by adding budget amendment number 1, and this is also a public hearing.
Yes, ma'am. Jesse Moyers, our Chief Finance Officer, is up here for this one, the next, and the next. He'll be up here for the next 3 items.
Mystery.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here to introduce the first budget amendment of FY '26. It's not a very large budget amendment. It is $684,950. The school portion or the city portion is $690,035 and the school amendment is $994,915. I presented this to the school board on September 8th. They held their own public hearing and approved it that night. September 18th, it was advertised in the newsletter for tonight's public hearing, and it will come back to you on October 9th for consideration. The city amendment, the general fund appropriation is $136,380, and that's made up of four things. $66,333 for the first phase of the ICMA grant that we were awarded. $16,981 for the clerk of court technology trust funds. $48,975 for additional comp board money for the clerk of court for a position that they were given. $4,091 for insurance recoveries. The bond fund, we're appropriating $339,953. And that is additional interest that was earned on our bond funds for the bond that we took out for the JDR courthouse. We originally budgeted $500,000 and we are now at $839,953 through the end of August 31st. Grant funds, $22,724 for three grants, $4,275 for the OEMS grant, $9,950 for the heat equipment grant, and $8,499 for the first responders wellness grant. The water fund, we are appropriating $190,070. This is from our 2022 bond funds. These are the bonds that we took out for the Gardner Springs pump station project that we have not been able to use all of them because we subsequently got a grant that we were initially denied for. So we're using $162,570 to design the reservoir lining replacement and $27,500 for the water infrastructure part of the Uniontown PER. The sewer fund is $908, and that's just an insurance recovery. So we move into the school portion of the amendment. The education fund is by far the largest at $940,239. So the Department of Ed released their final, their budget calc tool after the budget was complete. And so this is amending revenues for that, for these first four items. Using a basis of 2,500 students, that will result in an additional $395,796 of basic aid entitlement, $25,054 of compensation supplement, $93,129 for at-risk funding. And then a new funding source that they added this year, $101,260 for special education add-on funding. Most of this funding will be placed in a contingency. There are some that are being used for supplements, additional pay adjustments, and they're adding a new IA position. But I believe it's about $650,000 of this amendment will be going into a contingency line for them. And then the 325 is adding a budget for Medicaid reimbursements. The school CIP fund is appropriating $54,675.77. Most of that was interest earned on their CIP funds of $49,195.77, and then a small school security equipment grant of $5,840. And that concludes my introduction. I can take questions now, or you can move to the public hearing.
I do have one quick correction. What the on the previous, not the schools, the city budget amendment, what's the source of those grants? Just these smaller ones that come in, is that entirely state? Is some of the federal grants? Or if you don't have that in front of you, you can answer me. Sorry to blindside you with
I
that
can
one.
get it. I mean, I have it. I would just have to dig through my backup, but
You can,
yeah.
don't worry about it. I'm just
Okay.
curious, the source of these things that come in, whether it's something we can more vigorously pursue for other avenues, or it's just a recurring thing in our budget.
Like the one came from the Office of Emergency Medical Services from the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Okay.
That is the OEMS heat grant. Let's see. Maybe the Virginia State Police, I believe, is that where that one came from.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, thanks. Just interested with what level those are coming from, but
I'm curious if on the education fund, were those funds, increases or decreases?
Increases. Yes.
Any other questions?
They're very sizable increases. Is it typical that we would have an amendment this large because of this?
I think we had one last year too, because the state budget, they just don't release the calc tool in time for us to complete our budget with. The Medicaid reimbursement, that was a budgeting item that was missed on the school side this past year. So that is an additional revenue line.
All righty. Any other questions? Right. Thank you, Ms. Moyers. We'll go into a public hearing then. I will now open the public hearing. So if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and we will alternate between individuals physically present and those who have their hands raised via the Zoom platform. This public hearing is for item C only, and you are asked not to speak on any other topic, and you have 5 minutes. Would anybody like to speak on this topic? Do we have anyone with their hand raised, Mr. Knight?
There are no hands raised.
The public hearing is now closed. And I am not going to ask for a motion. Thank you very much, Ms. Moyers. We'll see you back here in October. Righty, moving on to item E, review and approval of, I'm sorry, D.
Item D.
Discussion and preliminary fiscal year 2025 financial results and year-end carryover. Ms. Beauregard.
Ms. Moyers.
It is a pleasure to be back.
Super
hello.
confusing.
So this year's been a little tough. We've had a Kronos upgrade going on that's taken a lot of time from finance, human resources, and IT. So there are still a few entries that need to be done. But this should be the big picture of how the year is going to wrap up. So meals tax came in. We had budgeted $6,660,000. We came in at $6,860,000. So almost $201,000 above budget. We did increase the FY26 budget by $90,000. Local sales tax, we exceeded budget by $153,944. That number at the bottom should be FY26 budget. We increased the budget by $25,000, right under $6 million. Lodging tax, we had a budget of $1,350,000. We came in at $1,326,951. So we came in about $23,000 under budget. We did decrease this budget because we had not made it in the last 2 years in the FY26 budget by about $50,000. The major variances that we're seeing in the FY25 results is, of course, the real estate tax increase, largely due to the assessment. But $491,000 of this is due to the 2 cents increase. I thought you would want to know that as we go into talks about how we're going to use the carryover in probably December, January. $922,000 personal property tax variance, higher than what we had budgeted. Business license, $540,000. And then we had just talked about the meals and the sales. And then interest for the general fund came in $167,000 above what we have budgeted. Interest income for us the last few years has been a significant earnings. Last year, we had moved money into the Virginia investment pool and a Truist money market account to take advantage of the higher interest rates. And so between those two accounts, we earned $2,652,000. That's not including the money that we have sitting in the SNAP accounts for our 2022 and our 2024 bond funds. They're earning interest too. And then we also have a few U.S. bank investments. So overall, we've earned almost $4.2 million in interest in FY '25. I gave you the fund breakdown with the CIP fund earning the most. That's where our CIP reserves and our ARPA funds are sitting, earning interest. We put a lot of that interest toward park facilities. There is still some to appropriate that will probably come back to you on the next budget amendment. The water fund, $763,000. A good portion of that is being earned on the 2022 bond. We will not get to spend all of that because we have not met the spending requirements fast enough on that. So overall, we've earned about $1 million in interest on that Gardner Springs debt, and we'll probably be able to keep about $600,000 or $700,000 of that and use on water infrastructure projects.
Can you say what the interest rates were on average for these investment funds?
The VIP was about 4.3-ish or 4.4. The money market for Truist was less than that. That one is earning 3 something, I believe.
To help us keep pace with inflation.
And the SNAP accounts are above 4.
Could you repeat what you just said about we weren't spending the money fast enough?
So because we got the ARPA grant for the Gardner Springs,
yeah.
we stopped pulling down those debt funds and had to spend the grant funds.
Oh,
And you have to meet, because it's tax exempt debt, you
Mhm.
have to spend it and earn less interest than what you're paying on the bond. Or so they allow you to earn some. So we've recouped all the interest we paid on that debt, but we will eventually have to return some of it to the IRS because you cannot earn more than you're paying out
I see.
on taxes
Okay.
and debt. So
Problem to have.
it's an excellent problem to have because we haven't at this point put out any interest
Glad you
on the debt.
understand that.
We've
Right.
earned everything that we can.
Expiring points.
Yes. The good news on the JDR courthouse is we met all the spending requirements, so we'll get to keep every penny of interest there.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Moyers.
Well done.
So major expenditure variances, salaries and benefits are under budget by $619,400. That's in addition to the $300,000 that we had already built into the budget. A lot of that coming from police, streets, they're the 2 major departments. Positive variances, Department of Social Services, you have to net out the state revenue, the federal revenue, and the expenditures. Altogether, it's $124,500 positive. And then we're still recognizing some savings on our telephone switch that we made a few years ago. And we did decrease some of those telephone budgets in the FY '26 budget. One thing I wanted to point to your attention is that tax relief was over budget by $137,194. We had increased the budget for veterans. It was $150. That's coming in at $227,363. Elderly and disabled, we had budgeted $134. Actuals were $193,831. So right now, the first red box is around our safety net. We have to, according to our policy, put 16.5% of the FY '26 budget aside. That budget did increase enough that we had to take $1 million and increase that safety net. And then right now, our carryover contingency is almost $5.4 million. Now, 250 of that cannot be spent because that's in a different set aside contingency.
So the safety net, is that still at 16%, you said?
16.5. I think we've left it there the last few years. So are there any questions on what I've went over? We'll be back in December for the final year in results. We will start having conversations about the carryover. And
That amount is 5 million.
the total unassigned is 5.4. Yes,
Can't spend 250 of that.
right.
So are you finished, Counselor Woods? When we're looking at the DSS net expenses, is this the pass through for that agency?
Yes. Not exactly. We have our local share that we put into that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if pass-through is right. Okay,
But we do have some like state and revenues that
sure.
kind of pass through.
Thank you. Anyone, any other questions for Ms. Moyers?
I mean, it's just a reminder to me of to me, a little bit backwards process that we don't fund CIP up front, that we wait to see what's going to be available in the carryover and say, hooray, we have this much to spend. And I wish we could take maybe like the last 3 years average carryover and say, that's our capital budget, added to the money that we're explicitly setting aside with 3%, toward capital plus the other things that we're doing.
Without the assessment increase and the rate increase, we would not have enough carryover to fund the CIP. And I think that's what we're going to head into next year. Because we're not going to have that rate increase. We're not going to have the assessment increase. So I foresee us not being able to fund the entire CIP next year from carryover unless there's something magical that happens.
That's just sort of a more reality-based approach to say,
Yeah.
this is what we actually are committing to funding rather than sort of hoping that, whatever we have from carryover.
Keep saying it, Joe.
So Brown Edwards and Company, our auditors, will be on site the week of October 6th to 10th. We will finish working on the audit and the annual comprehensive financial report in October, November. And the actors usually presented to council that first meeting in December. And then in January, we will come back with carryover recommendations, most of which will be funding our CIP. And that is all I had to review, unless you have additional questions for me.
I have a question about something in the packet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me as if, and this is on page, that's the Public Works expenditures, the actual versus budgeted, and it looks like we've only spent 69% of that Public Works budget.
So
I'm just
on
wondering,
this
why
particular
are we- go
slide,
ahead.
you'll see the restricted column is now at 4.3 million, up from 3 million. So that is unspent VDOT reimbursement funds is the largest portion of that. We know that we have some set aside for North Madison Street. There are certain portions of the tunnel work that might qualify for Johnson Street and New Street. It will not qualify on Byers. And then we will be meeting with Public Works to come up with a spending plan for that. But what you're seeing is the unspent Public Works, the VDOT reimbursable maintenance funds.
Just a question, are we having trouble keeping up with the needs with the?
Yes, we're having a lot of trouble retaining street staff. That gets a portion of their salary is funded through the VDOT maintenance fund. We're having trouble getting the paving contractor is usually busy and can't get to all the work that we have the money funded for. So that's one of the things we want to talk to Public Works about is maybe having a second paving contractor.
Just my compliments to you and staff for doing an excellent job managing this. And I just wanted to, I know it's an accounting term, a positive variances and negative variances, but the negative variance of the tax relief, the 137 and 194, I don't see that. I do see that as a very positive thing, something that we did for people in our community. And that's probably money that will come back into our community more than likely. And it's a nice tax relief that seniors and disabled and veterans could take advantage of.
And I believe we did increase the budget there in FY26. I can't remember how much or if it's going to be enough going forward. We'll have to revisit that in FY27's budget.
Excellent. All righty. Thank you, Council. All righty, thank you.
It
Oh,
could be
go ahead.
appropriate, maybe, I'm not sure whether this belongs in this section or the budget year section. But we did talk a lot in the last budget cycle about the importance of getting grant funds. We talked about dedicating a position to that. City manager thought it'd be best to disperse it across city staff, all of whom had grant-seeking responsibilities. But as part of these reports, I would appreciate an accounting of, you had a grant section there, but I guess more comprehensive, how much grant money is coming into the city year-to-date compared to previous year-to-date. I think it's important to track that and just accountability for grant funds.
And Leslie did let us know that that is a request from council, and
Okay.
Cindy and I are going to be working on that. Not quite sure what the presentation of it would look like. Because some of the grants are like you get large, like the crossing grant is a large chunk at one point in time that you spend over a couple years. So we're trying to determine what the correct presentation is for that. But yeah, that is on our radar to add to our quarterly reporting cycle.
I
It
appreciate
may not land on the exact quarterly reporting for the fiscal, for the ones that you get with the other funds, but
Yeah.
yeah, we are talking about what that cycle looks like. So we'll be back soon with something to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moyers. I think that's all our questions. Are you next? Moving on to item E, review and approval of fiscal year 2027 budget calendar. God, already. Ms. Beauregard, or
Moyers.
Ms. Moyers?
So we're operating in 3 fiscal years. We're wrapping up FY 25, we're in FY 26, and we're starting to think of FY 27. So agenda item E is the FY 27 budget calendar. We just wanted to get this in front of you to see if there were any conflicts or issues with the dates. The budget call notice will go out to departments October 20th. We'll receive all the submissions back to them and start having meetings with them in December. There is a city school joint meeting scheduled for January 22nd. Outside agency requests will be sent out in December. They'll due back to us January 23rd. I will be presenting the draft CIP to you at the second meeting in February. I think we have another school board work session, April 9th. Then a few budget work sessions, April 16th, April 23rd, with hopefully adopting April 23rd. So any discussion or issues with this proposed calendar?
Not really.
Doesn't necessarily relate to calendar, but just a note that we did talk about some kind of a ranking rubric be added this year for outside agency requests. So incorporate that as part of the budget process instead of us looking at tons of raw data submitted by each of these to say, okay, based on their support from other agencies, their effectiveness in helping the community in these ways, here's our recommendations, here's our ratings of these outside agency requests.
Love for you to dig into their 990s. At least.
Yes. I wish I had time to read them all.
Yeah, there are nonprofits and there are nonprofits, but yeah.
We could have a subcommittee, maybe, one of us, some city staff, that digs
Nominate
through and
Jeff.
applies the criteria. And the rest of the council say, hey, here's our rankings.
Okay, we will definitely look into that.
Just looking at the order of events here, so March 25th is the deadline or that's the planned advertisement if we were considering any proposed tax or fee increases. But we don't really have a comprehensive budget discussion until after that. I was just thinking, is there any benefit of having a higher level initial budget discussion of the big picture items earlier in the year leading in to that advertisement? Just for public awareness.
Like a work session relating to like utility rates and things like that.
We've talked about that, kind of like what we did, I don't know, a few years ago, and then with water and sewer last year, kind of introducing things and starting to talk about them. So it may not be on here, but there'll be some things that we bring forward to you all in preparation for the budget. And if we get to a point where we think we need to have a work session, a special one, we can kind of figure that out the early part of 2026, once
Okay.
we get to that point. But yeah, we've been talking about the flow of information and start talking about the budget and what those will look like. Yep.
Question, Ms. Moyers, it says budget notice to outside agencies. Is that the notice of approval of? one?
Just letting them know
Just
that
letting them
we're in
know.
the FY27 budgeting process and for them to
Submit if
to
they
submit
are
their
wanting to.
documents and request.
And the deadline for the decision would be sometime.
Well, we receive them back January 23rd, and then we have to have the decision by the time we present the budget to you, March 26th. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Moyer? All righty, well, I will entertain a motion.
Didn't really put a motion together.
It is a motion.
We
I
just,
move to approve.
we just, just let us know if you
Oh,
all are
okay,
okay
we
with
don't have to
it.
move.
And then we'll consider the other items, such as like if we need an additional work session. This is fluid, so calendars
it.
change, obviously.
All right,
So
I
this is just
do-
kind of step one. But, obviously this kind of kicks off the process, and we'll be back to you lots and lots between now and March to talk about the budget. So
All righty,
head nod, and then we'll be good to go.
this looks great.
Okay, this is a start. This is just a start.
This is a fluid process.
Yeah.
No motion.
All right.
Moving on to our final item on the agenda is a consideration of a resolution establishing the percentage of relief at 33% for purposes of the Personal Property Tax Relief Act. Ms. Beauregard.
Maggie Reagan, our Commissioner of Revenue, is here this evening.
Good evening, Ms.
Good
Reagan.
evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's September, so it must be PPTR time.
There you go.
Right? As I do each year, come to you with a recommendation for setting the personal property tax relief percentage that we will apply the state funds that will spread it across all of the qualifying vehicles in our fleet. And our percentage was set at 33% last year. We have not had any significant shifts in the fleet as far as the qualifying vehicles are concerned. We do have a slightly larger number of vehicles this year, but not as great a value. So we are able to go ahead and offer that 33% again this year, which we're happy about. Does anybody have any questions about how all that works? Or I know I say this every year, so I think it
That's
seems
okay.
kind of.
Any questions from council?
When do you give your cooler report with the breakdown?
I
of
have my
vehicles?
Full
report right
report?
here.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, one of my deputies prepared the report this year and, well, I'll get to that in a second. So we have, currently 26,271 taxable vehicles. This year, our highest assessed vehicle at over $130,000 is an American-made Corvette. Our popular cars and trucks are pretty much the same. So although the Chevy Silverado is gaining on the Ford F-150, so they're only a difference of about 13 of them. So if we get 14 more Chevys, they're going to take over. Our top, as usual, the Honda Civic, CRV, and Accords, the Toyota Camry, Corollas, and RAV4s. And the Toyota Tacoma is also popular, but not quite as big as the F-150 and the Silverados. We have over 3,000 Toyotas and Fords and Hondas, and then followed by Chevy, Subaru, Nissan, Hyundai, Jeep, Kia, Dodge, GMC, Volkswagen, and then we get down into some of the smaller numbers, but we are up to 38 Teslas. They're going like hotcakes, folks. Our oldest taxable vehicle is still the 1920 Ford Model A. And we note that it only has a 7-digit VIN, which most VINs are pretty long these days. This is the part that my deputy included. There are only 22 cars in the city older than 1960. And I think he thought that that was funny because that's vintage nineteen
That's just
sixty.
ancient, Maggie. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Whereas the average age or the average median model year is 2014. We had 212 2025 models purchased this year. As our motorcycles go, we have 694 taxable motorcycles. Most are Harley Davidsons, and those have the highest values. So that's your facts for this year. I'll hand those off to Josh if you'd like
Yeah, that
to
would be nice. Thank you.
keep those.
So mopeds, scooters, those are not taxed. Do you have a breakout of?
We don't assess anything that does not that is not titled at the DMV.
Do you have a breakout generically of electrics and hybrids?
We don't.
Tesla.
It, so if the model
Lucid.
if the model is inherently hybrid or electric, it's built into the valuation when we assess it, but we don't have any way to kind of break that out unless we actually went in and pulled, how many Prius and how many, we'd have to know what they all were and kind of pull that manually. So it doesn't really, it's not a natural delineation. Other questions? Okay, thank
you.
you.
I see that I meant to ask for, okay, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I
Councilor
move
Wood.
that the
Mhm.
resolution as presented be adopted, establishing the Personal Property Tax Relief Act, PPTRA percentage at 33%.
Counselor Woods, is there a second?
Second.
Wait, any further discussion about? Thank you. Mr. Blair, would please call the roll?
Ms. Woods,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Campbell,
Aye.
Mr. Overholzer,
Aye.
Ms. Park,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Arrowood,
Aye.
Mayor Edwards.
Aye. Thank you.
Harris.
All righty. Well, this takes us to matters from the city manager. Yes.
Mayor Edwards. The first item is about the comprehensive plan update. And we will send out another reminder about this, but I just wanted to announce that the third and final community workshop for the comprehensive plan update has been scheduled for Monday, November 10th, 5:30 to 7 at Bessie Weller Elementary School. This meeting will provide attendees with an opportunity to review and provide input on the draft recommendations within the plan, as well as a draft of the new future land use map. This will be the final in-person meeting, community meeting, but it will not be the last opportunity for public input. A survey will be made available in early 2026 for community members to provide feedback on the complete draft plan before it is presented to council for adoption. And the second item is just 4 words, Queen City Mischief and Magic. Y'all know what to do. Yep. I avoid downtown unless you really want to enjoy Queen City Mischief and Magic.
And I do.
It's very exciting.
It is.
Actually, but it's going to be busy, busy, busy downtown. So just have fun, watch out for each other, but have fun too.
I don't want to put a damper on it, but they did call for.
Okay,
Why
I'm
are you
sorry.
trying
It
to
is
put a damper on it?
absolutely a tradition that at monsoons on the first day of Queen City Mischief and
All right,
Magic.
Just
well,
for-
we're
just for a
gonna
couple
break
minutes.
that.
Think
All
how
right.
convenient
And so I
everything
think
will
they're
be.
used to it by now. It will be fine.
All
Just like the
right.
4th of July,
All right.
just for a couple minutes.
Is that all you have, Mrs.
Yes, ma'am.
Regard? All righty. Well, this takes us to our final item, matters from the public. It is a time that council sets aside to hear from citizens and others about a wide variety of subjects. A copy of the Staunton City Council's Matters from the Public rules are available in paper form at the clerk's desk and online on the City of Staunton's webpage. You are asked to familiarize yourself with those rules before commenting. If you would like to speak, please come to the podium or raise your hand on Zoom. First, give us your name and address and complete your remarks within 5 minutes. As a reminder, this is a time for council to listen. If you would like an answer to a question or a follow-up to your comment, please speak to the city manager, Leslie Beauregard, following the meeting. Or one of us. Would anyone like to speak at Matters from the Public? Mr. Knight, anyone with their hands raised?
Madam Mayor, we have no hands raised.
I cannot believe that you are not getting. Anyone would like to speak? Anyone with their hands raised?
There are no hands raised.
This meeting of the Staunton City Council is adjourned. That
Jack Lewis is.